Board meeting for the Village of Cary for January 27th, 2026 to order with roll call, please.
Collier is absent. Dudek?
Here.
McAlpine?
Here.
Persina?
Here.
Stefani?
Here.
Walrath?
Here.
Kownick?
Here, please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Now moving to the open forum where the public is given an opportunity to address the village board about issues not otherwise on the agenda. We have nobody that has signed in. Is there anybody here that would like to address the village board? Okay, we'll go ahead and close open forum at 6:01. Getting to the meat of the business, we have a discussion regarding alfresco alley improvements. I'll turn it over to Nick.
All
I can
right.
take this.
I'll actually hand it over to Katie.
Okay.
Good evening, everyone. The village has been working with MKSK, an urban design and landscape architect firm, for the design of Alfresco Alley. They were selected through a QBS process. They're currently in the design phase and have prepared a proposed permanent design and temporary design for features that would be implemented for the months that Alfresco Alley is open. I now welcome MKSK to present that design.
Great, thank you. Thank you so much for the introduction, and thank you for having us this evening. I'm joined here tonight by my colleague Abigail Fiala. She's a project manager with MKSK, and my name is Brett Weidel. I'm a landscape architect and principal in charge on this project. We can go to the next slide. We're going to try to keep our presentation pretty succinct here, focus on some of the key decisions that need to be made as we move forward in this project. But we will give a brief overview of existing conditions, some of our findings from our community engagement process, as well as a review of the design concepts today and the costs that we're looking at, in addition to next steps. So Abigail, I'll turn it over to you.
Okay, if you could take it to the next slide, please. Thank you very much. What you see here is just an inventory of the existing conditions in the alleyway, or Spring Street, your Alfresco Alley. I know you're all very familiar with this space, but we just wanted to call to attention some of the conditions that are on site today that are important to consider when thinking about improvements, whether permanent or temporary, to Spring Street. So quite a few existing utilities on site that we'll be working with a civil engineering team to kind of work through, some existing trees, as well as, you know, the existing parking that we know is important to maintain within this space. We also know that there's been some recent work that has occurred on Main Street. So the crosswalks that exist there are newer to this space, quite a few existing light poles. So this is really just a snapshot in time of what you have out in that space today that we're aware of. And we do have a survey that was recently completed, and we should be receiving more detailed utility information in the coming weeks from the survey and civil team. Go to the next slide. Thank you. We are approaching the concept from two different directions today, and we'll walk you through each. First, focusing on streetscape character, which will look at permanent improvements to Spring Street to align it with the recent work that's occurred in downtown with the Depot Plaza and Main Street. And then streetscape program, which are the alfresco or seasonal enhancements that can be put up in the summertime and in warm weather when the street is closed to vehicular traffic, and then taken away when the Alfresco Alley program ends in the fall. So there will be two kind of different design schemes that you'll see, one focused more on those permanent improvements and then another focused more on the seasonal improvements. Next slide. as Brett mentioned, we've done a bit of engagement over the past few weeks. First, through an online survey that had an incredible response with over 374 online responses. We learned a lot of really, really great information from that survey about what's important to the village and what's important for us as designers to understand when we're thinking about both permanent and programmatic changes to this space. So what you see here are a few snapshots of some of the more popular answers to that survey. What we heard is that people love downtown Cary for the special events that occur, specifically things like cruise night and the farmers market. But they want to see even more of it. So what types of programming would they like to see along Spring Street? Maybe a craft market or a night market, in addition to things like live performances and the outdoor dining that Alfresco Alley supports. What do people like most about the downtown Cary streetscape? People love the string lighting. You can see that orange bar on the upper right-hand graph is just like leaps and bounds above the rest. People love the string light and lighted elements. What improvements along Spring Street Alfresco Alley should be prioritized? We heard shade as a huge priority, as well as varied types of seating. So benches and seating options, maybe not just one type of seating, but a variety of seating experiences. And that's just a few of the survey responses that we received. If you go to the next slide, we also conducted an open house on January 13th, where we heard from residents of Cary and others from the village who shared some really great insights on the space that we as non-residents of Cary couldn't have understood otherwise. So what we heard was how important it is to increase sidewalk widths and maintain an easily navigable space along Spring Street, especially when thinking about families that have maybe children in strollers, that sometimes the narrow sidewalks can be difficult to navigate. We also heard that there was some interest in parallel parking, although we do understand that parking is a bit of a hot topic, and it's important to continue to provide parking when the street is open. We heard about a need for bike racks. We heard about a need for back benches, a little bit about that varying types of seating, not just backless benches, but something that's a little bit more supportive. We heard favor for public art. And then what you see on the right-hand side, or I guess in the center column, are some quotes that we heard specifically from the online survey. A desire for dedicated parking for bikes and e-bikes, scooters, more green space and space for families. And again, that reiterating the need for shade, how hot it gets downtown in the afternoon sun, and how much more enjoyable that space could be with the addition of additional shade elements. Next slide. At our open house, we had two boards where attendees can vote for their preferences for some of the alfresco elements. And Brett will talk about this a little bit more later in the presentation, but you can see here just how important shade continues to be for the public with those alfresco alley improvements, the two leaders being an overhead shade structure and shade pergolas. For more program-focused elements, again, very much in line with what we heard in the online survey, more space for markets and pop-ups. That's a program that the Village of Cary is doing really, really well. People love and want to see even more of, in addition to the outdoor dining and performance spaces. So really great feedback that we received both in person and online, really, really consistent feedback. We didn't hear a lot of contradictory opinion between the survey and the in-person response, which is incredibly helpful as we start to move forward in the design process with both the permanent and alfresco elements. Next slide. So what you see here are the proposed permanent improvements. So on Spring Street, what you'll see is a way to kind of align the street with the work recently done on Main Street. So using all of the same materials, that similar palette for pavers enhancing the parking by creating paved space. You'll still have the exact same amount of parking spaces that exist on Spring Street today, but the materiality will feel more in line with what's on Main Street by using those pavers. You'll also see the addition of trees and planters on both the east and west sides. In this image, north is actually on the left side of the screen. So the east side would be the top and the west side of the street, the bottom of the screen. The addition of trees providing a shade element that is also adding to the feeling of green space. We're proposing a relocation of the carry sign that you can see in the top kind of right-hand corner close to the intersection outside of Conscious Cup to make it a little bit more easy to navigate across the crosswalk, but still allow for that prominent art element to be a feature, a place that people go and get their photo taken. You'll see the addition of 3 planters that will match the existing stone planter that you have on that top sort of northeast corner at Spring Street in Maine. And then you'll also see the addition of several benches similar to what exists on Main Street. The goal of this plan is really to make Spring Street feel like it flows directly into Main Street and creates a really cohesive downtown experience for the village. You'll also see string lights strung across the street. Again, in the survey, that was something that people expressed a lot of love for on Main Street, so continuing that same feeling down Spring Street. Okay, next slide. So this is where we start to get into some of the facts and figures. What you see here is what we call an opinion of probable cost, which means that it's very high level and it's ever changing. So even in the time that we've kind of created this presentation and submitted it to you, we have uncovered a few items that we need to add to this list. And I will hand it over to Brett to kind of talk a little bit more in depth about cost and about how the village can prioritize their needs.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Abigail. And as she mentioned, completely right, when we're at schematic design, things are still moving around. We still need to loop our civil engineers into a more detailed technical design process, which will be forthcoming. We also don't have the site survey yet, so that's going to open up a lot of windows to us just about the utilities present and what needs to be taken care of there. So I would say what you're seeing on the screen here, though it is a cost opinion, it's still relatively low. In the time that, we put this together, that's actually the total has increased to about over 800,000. And that's to do with some estimates that we received for power pole removal and line burial, as well as some additional paving treatment numbers. And so that's why we want to preface this and say, these numbers are still in flux a little bit. And I think that there's room to work within the estimate to identify items that maybe aren't as high of a priority, to start to either remove those out or, as we get further along in this design process, we tend to, get closer and closer to a more exact number. So our contingencies start to go down and we really start to hone in a lot closer to the exact number. So we always like to start high and then move our way down. So that's just a preface to this. But you will see on here where the highest totals are coming in for hardscape. That's to do with all the pavers that we're showing in the vehicular way. And then lighting and electrical, there's a lot of unknowns with respect to, like I said, there's a power pole out there that I think we need to decide if we can bury or not. It is a high cost to do that. Also the light poles, and if we were to add structure like overhead structures to the light poles, they require a very big base. As you will see on Main Street, the bases out there are pretty hefty and large. That's to do with some of the soils that we're seeing out on site and the geotechnical work that we had done. And so there's a high cost there associated with these items. But I will pause there for a second as we move into the rest of this. One thing I'll just note is we want to provide Katie with a more up-to-date version of this cost opinion. So we will follow up with her on that so that you all have access to that document That document will show a lot more of the line item costs that we currently have projected. So you can start to see where these numbers are going to and really start to evaluate what the priorities might be. Next slide. Lastly here, Abigail at the front end of the presentation mentioned that we were looking both at permanent improvements and seasonal enhancements. So the alfresco enhancements that can be installed in the warmer months to make this a special space for public events. This sheet is showing a couple of things here. So we're showing 4 potential additional items that could be added on for alfresco. One being the shade structure. 2, the shade pergolas, which would be like standalone structures, a wood deck, which would create sort of a flush surface with the curbs and feel a little bit more like a pedestrian space instead of the roadway space itself. A lawn area that could be laid down only in the summer months. So this would be like an artificial turf surface. They come in tiles that can be laid down. They're very heavy. They're not going to blow away or anything like that, but they're softer for programming. So we looked at each of these 4 items. We broke down their cost per square foot on an apples to apples basis. So you could kind of see, you know, how each of these compares to one another in terms of their square footage cost. And then we also looked at below that how much is being projected based on what you're seeing in the diagram above, how much cost that would project. Do these need to be the layouts? No, we could, you know, instead of showing 6 or 8 shade structure columns, could we do 4 or 6? Yes. And so that would, you know, commensurately take down the cost. But we did want to just, you know, build out some assumptions here so you could start to see how much some of these items might cost. And then on the bottom of this, the little arrow bar on the bottom is just, again, relating this back to the community feedback to show that the items on the left, shade structure and pergolas, are a little bit more highly preferred than the items on the right. And that's based on what we heard from the community. So I will leave that there, but just to clarify, none of these alfresco elements are included in the cost estimate right now. So these would all be in addition to. That's where I think we need to really carefully look at the budget for the project and really understand what the priorities are between priorities and between sort of honing in on the more technical costs for some of these items. I think we'll be able to come away with the right solutions that's going to prioritize the needs for the village. And then we'll go to the next slide here. I think this is our next steps. So our next steps in this process, we're looking for the village to provide some feedback here for us based on this information. So like I said, we'll leave you with a little bit more of this technical information. It's not as fun to look at. It's an Excel spreadsheet, but we will deliver that to you all so you have it. We are happy to answer any questions. We're happy to meet further with Katie or her team to go over anything. But once we get that feedback, then we'll be able to move into design development, which is that more technical phase of design. And we're aiming for a 60% design deliverable in February, late February, moving into final documentation, final technical design in the latter part of April with the goal of construction this summer. So we really want to try to get as much feedback as possible just so that we can keep this process moving. And hopefully we can get this constructed this summer yet. But I will turn it back over to you all. Thank you so much for having us this evening. We're happy to answer any questions if there's time for questions.
Thank you. There will be time for questions. Katie, do you have anything that you want to round this up with?
I just wanted to say thank you for the presentation. And again, at this time, some of those temporary features that would be implemented during the active months of Alfresco Alley, we're looking for direction on that, as well as any of those permanent features. If there's anything that you're interested in, could do without, would like to see, right now is where we'd like to hear that information.
Great. Nick, can you go back to those slides, please? Yeah, this is what you want. Well, the permanent is pretty much what we can do there, correct?
Yes.
Any thoughts, comments on this?
My assumption is the wood piece, pergolas are only during when it's closed, right?
Right.
Okay.
That's correct.
And then the shaded part, I think that was, you can go back.
Well, let's talk about the permanent improvements first, and then we'll go to the
Okay.
additionals. Could you elaborate a little bit more on the lighting and electrical, that $257,000? Does that include burying the telephone pole and lines that are currently there, or would that be an addition?
Abigail, I'll let you chime in. I know you're talking to the civil about this.
Yes, so the number that you see on your screen has increased since the creation of this presentation, and in conversation with our engineering team, we have raised that placeholder cost to include a higher allowance for burying that power pole and electrical line. The updated cost for that would be closer to $330,000 for electrical work. And I do want to reiterate, as Brett mentioned, we're still in very, very early stages of design and have not yet engaged deeply with the electrical engineer. So that's a pretty wide range of cost that we're holding there just in case. But the updated total, including a power line burial, is in the $330,000 range.
Okay, thank you.
And to clarify, that lighting item that's noted there, that is catenary lighting or string lighting over Spring Street with the permanent improvement base cost here, correct?
That is correct. Yes.
Going across the entire thing. So does anybody have any comments on what to tying it into Main Street? So what we have that continuity going, it's pretty basic for what we're looking at doing. Love to hear your input and some thoughts, maybe some additions.
I think the real conversation is on the second piece, the more, this kind of is what it is.
Yeah.
Is a baseline.
Well, I just wanted to make sure everybody knew this is what it is. Yeah. So, and then with the clarification with the electrical, that was a big part of our concern and how we can move forward with something like that to eliminate that obstruction that's there. Nick, could you go to the next slide, please? Thank you.
Just so I'm clear, so the new estimate as of right now is like $800K?
Right.
Just out of curiosity, what did we spend on just Main Street? Remember what that out the door was, or what the estimate was and what the actual was? Sorry, I don't mean to throw that at you. Just out of
I
curiosity.
don't recall what the estimates were, but I believe the construction costs were in the $1.3 million range.
Okay.
I have to double check to be certain, though.
Thanks.
I thought it was more than that.
It may have been more.
Well, I think that the point is that we started a project and we need to finish the project. And I'm not saying whether things can change a little bit here and there, but tying it in is important and something that we've been planning for a long time to get this done.
Thoughts on the enhancements?
I think, you always hate to hear that things are going to be more than we thought they were going to be, or, with any project, big or small, you're going to find things that you run into along the way that you didn't necessarily expect. It's always frustrating. You go kick the bucket and then you come back and look at it again. I guess for me, I would say it's important to focus on the items that polled best with the people who responded to the survey. I personally think I understand the desire for continuity and for incorporating Spring Street into the look of Main Street. I know there's the larger ticket items, but I think the overhead shade and the overhead lighting is probably the best way to do that. The wood deck and the lawn tiles, I don't think they scored as well. I would agree with where they landed on the Richter scale of enthusiasm. Shade pergolas are nice, but if we have overhead shade structure, we probably wouldn't need those. It's just a guess. I guess a question is, we were talking about the large, the bases required for the lighting. Do those bases support the lighting and the shade structure? Are those the same bases, or are we talking about twice as many, one for the lighting, one for the shade?
That's a very good question. That is something that we want to dig into further as we get into technical design with the structural engineer, because as you've seen on Main Street, the bases and the poles that are that are there for the catenary lighting today are very big. And we do worry that adding the structural component, as canopies they're much more structural intensive because there's wind loads pushing on those things constantly. We are worried that that's going to just make these things like way overscaled. So that's something we need to study further and evaluate with your team to understand how big is too big. And then if we're getting to a point of too big, do we start to break those into two separate structures? So that we would essentially, you'd end up with double. You'd have your lighting poles and then you'd have your structure poles.
Thank you. Kind of piggybacking on that a little bit more. I'm talking a lot tonight. If we use the same bases, or if if it requires the bases are bigger than maybe what was expected, is there an opportunity to build some of the seating into those bases to, effectively utilizing sort of an eyesore and putting the seating into it? Yeah, a little lipstick on it, as they say. I know that we've got plans for some seating that was also scoring high on the survey. But if we could tie those two pieces together, you might make it look a little bit better and sort of hide the size of those poles.
Yeah, I mean, anything like that is always possible for us to look into once we get there. So I would say creativity is endless. It really comes down to budget, I think, and how you all are feeling about what the priorities are. So we're happy to explore that, yes.
100%. Final thought. We're talking about summer construction. Does that mean we are without Alfresco Alley this summer? And is there an opportunity to do this later in the summer and into the fall months, just so that the Village of Cary can get a little use out of Alfresco this summer? And maybe that's not a question that needs to be answered tonight, but just a thought.
Well, I can speak to for streetscape projects, and I'm not sure exactly how the progression went for Main Street, but I do know that when we do them, we typically like to work with the general contractors to develop a very tight phasing plan for definitely to keep the businesses open. That's our main concern, is that they don't see any sort of, I mean, there's going to be some impact, right? But that they say minimal impact from these efforts. But we could explore through that. How can we phase this? Maybe you do half of the road at one point and the other half another point. You're opening one and you're closing the other. I think there's also ways to get creative with that we can explore.
Okay. Thank you.
Mark, I think an important piece that's not shown on here is in these four choices that we're being asked about, what is the projected maintenance cost? If the highest priced item, the shade structure, that seems to be the most favored one as far as the surveys are concerned. If that's a hard cost at $380,000 and you don't put another dime into it, that's one cost. If it's $380,000 and then there's a maintenance piece, which something like a pergola will have, and something like the lawn tiles and wood deck will most definitely add, we need to know that number as well, because we need to know what the lifetime spend is going to be. It's all well and good to pick the lowest cost item, but when you end up spending 4x that amount over the life of the product just to maintenance, then you really didn't save what you thought you saved. So I think that's a piece that needs to come up in all these enhancement ideas.
Good point.
Yeah, and I'll just,
Go
if
ahead.
I can add one more thing to that, I think maintenance is incredibly important. Thank you for bringing that up, but also storage. We've talked to Katie a little bit about this, but items like the boardwalk or the lawn or even the shade pergolas would be taken down and stored somewhere, and you want to make sure that you have the right size space to, put those somewhere safely, or even covered, protected for the winter. The shade sails, you would probably take those down as well in the winter, potentially, just because of the snow loads. But those obviously probably wouldn't have as hefty of a footprint, but very good point. Thank you.
Trustee McAlpine?
While both Rick and Dave brought up very important things to consider, I can definitely say without hesitation that I do not care for the lawn tiles or the wood deck. I don't think that that's a long-term solution. It is a question of we needed a little bit more information, financial information regarding the shade structure versus the shade pergolas. The shade pergolas looks like it's only covering a little bit. The shade structure is covering a lot more. You know, we need to see what those different costs. It's more than double the cost to go one way. Is it something where we should extend the shade pergolas and make them, you know, make it $270,000 by having double the amount of those? I mean, I'm just not sure. But my preference in looking at this is to, number one, look at the things that the community outreach has said that they want to have and how do we get those accomplished. But we have to be prudent stewards and say, what are these other costs? There's other hard costs that go along with this as well.
I'm glad you brought that up, because it made me think of one other thing that I forgot to ask in the question. When we start analyzing the shade items, because shade was the number one requested item, when we start analyzing those, we'll need to see a light study. And what I mean by that is this is an east-west, as she stated earlier. So there's a certain part of the morning where there's shade just coming from the coffee shop. In middle of the day, there's no shade in the middle, and then the afternoon is from the other side. So potentially, when you're going to need the shade will be in the afternoon, in middle day in the afternoon. So placing them, if you go with a pergola, where you place them is just as important as how much there is. So having that information rather than speculating, I think would be a really valuable piece to determine, okay, it's worth spending more money on the full-size shade structure because you're going to get everything over that area covered versus only covered 35% of the day.
Good point. Anthony?
That's absolutely something we can provide, probably during our DD process. We're happy to.
Thank you. Anthony, any other?
No, I would agree with lawn tiles, wood deck. I'm not a big fan of. Sorry, my mic was off. Lawn tiles and wood deck, I'm not a fan of. Shade structure, that's a hefty price. I think it's a great enhancement for down the line, but I would actually like to just see the first phase and mark it into 2 phases, and this is phase 2, maybe down the line, next fiscal or whatever we deem necessary. But that's a big price. So that's all I got.
Rick?
Couple of things. I think I'd be real curious if the shade is needed on Spring Street, because to me the shade is needed on Main Street, given the fact that there are no real big trees there, and you're going to get, as was pointed out, you get the morning sun just coming right down, and then the afternoon the opposite. And I'm guessing that the respondents who were asking for shade were there for car show or whatever, where there's no place to hide. And that's where I think the shade is more needed than on Spring Street. That's something I would ask the consultants. I don't know if the data would tell you that, but to me, shade on Main Street's more important. There's been nothing said about the Cucina tent. How does that filter?
The tent is going away.
Completely. There will be none.
Yeah, they don't want the tent anymore. They want to go back to their regular tableside seating with the umbrellas.
Okay. And then the last comment that I have, not related to cost, because that's a whole nother discussion, is I definitely would like to see, at a minimum, the streetscape kind of brought into Spring Street to tie it into Main Street. I think the consultants point out, the way they curve the corner, some of the changes with landscaping and all, it will make it look like one piece, even if you don't do anything more for a year or two. The other things would be really nice, but obviously, to Anthony's point, I think if you can stage them in, they fit in our budget better. But definitely that first piece we should do.
Can I just add one thing? Can you go back to the picture of what it would look like? Yes, that one. What's in front of the carry sign? Is that planters?
Planter.
I would love to see carry lifted on top of that planter. I think it make it stick out a little bit more, and if you can have some action lighting to actually show up on it, which I think is there right now, right?
The only challenge is kids climbing up then on that if it's on top of a planter. I just have a little a little risk adverse with the most people that get the pictures that are climbing into that carry sign are little kids. But
I'm with you, but if you
agree
look at where the planter is, though, I mean, you really couldn't take a picture in front of it.
Yeah.
Unless it's
I
in the
understand what you're
ground.
saying. It has to aesthetically
Is it in the
flow.
ground? I'm wondering.
I don't know. It's hard
Maybe
to
that's a
tell.
question for. It's in the ground.
It's flat.
So I can speak to this. The carry sign today is flush with grade.
Yep.
What we were proposing here is to keep it flush with grade, but just move it a little bit further back, almost to be that divider between the coffee shop's outdoor dining and this plaza space, putting some planting in front of it to soften that edge a little bit. But we weren't going to do any curb or anything. You could do a curb, you could do a planter. I think what we were showing was just a flush planter, like you have on Main Street. So it wouldn't be elevated at all unless you wanted it such.
Nope, that's it. That's what I needed clarification on. Thank you.
I don't want to drive this into the ground, I guess pun intended. But based on where the outdoor dining is on that side of Conscious Cup, if people are going over there to potentially take pictures in the carry display, are you going to be walking right through somebody's alfresco dining on that side and be like, oh, sorry, we'll be out of here in a second. Our kids just need to take a picture. It might get a little tight there. It's hard to tell what the clearances will be from this, but just something to think about if somebody's utilizing that space as a patron, and then we've got kids marching in, rightfully so, to take a cute picture. It might just get tight.
We were trying to show, it's really hard to see on this small graphic, but there's like a little carriage walk in front of the sign. So maybe 2 feet wide where you could stand, in front of it and get your photo. The other caveat I will just add to this topic is that there is an existing light pole that is situated very close to all of these elements. And we would need to consider if we need to relocate that light pole, because then it would be in front of the sign in this location, or whether we shift the sign location just slightly. But that's another thing we need to work through and does impact the electrical costs that we're showing.
And we still have the option of just leaving the sign where it is.
Exactly. I think the only issue we noticed in our analysis is that carry sign today does obstruct the clear path of the pedestrian from one crosswalk to another in an east-west direction. So that was something we were trying to avoid, but also understand if you prefer it where it is.
I still feel like that there's a lot of dead space in that curve. Can we not
Push it out a little-
expand to
push it
do
out a
like a
little bit.
couple extra like parking spots? Can you fit one more in there and push the planter?
That's the original planner that we're trying to duplicate with the rest of them. I don't know if you would have the,
Oh, yeah,
There's
you
also
can
like
kinda see it
ADA
behind there.
compliance
I gotcha.
issues.
There's ADA and stuff.
yeah. Nick, can you go back to the next slide, please? One of the thoughts that I had about, I'm in agreement with that. The only thing that I like on this is the shade structure. It's what the communities wanted. It's what we've been touting for years to do this. The cost is a little bit more, but we do have the grant funding. What is our grant funding for that? Like 800,000?
The grant funding is $850,000.
For looking at I love the idea. The pergola is a really cool idea. We don't have anywhere to store it, and the maintenance on it, what I think would be a nightmare. Taking it down, it would reduce the integrity of it every time you took it up and took it down. I'm sure Steve wouldn't want to deal with this all the time. The wood deck, and the tiles, I think that would be a public works nightmare. Not only having to store it, but having to assemble it, disassemble it every year, and what the timing is. And sometimes, the timing isn't in our favor. Weather changes, whatever. So I think, in my opinion, I think we need to look at what's the best way that we can get the shade structure at an affordable price. I was going to ask, how many poles do you have dedicated to this at the $380,000? Is it 6 poles or 8
Yes,
poles?
it's six shown in that image.
And do you know what the span is between each of the poles?
The poles are about, I believe, 25 feet apart, and then that image shows approximately 2,000 square feet of shade.
Shade is a big deal down there, especially my office is down there, and during the day, it's people are looking for cover, and I think this would change the atmosphere. I think it would be a great focal point for the rest of the downtown. It ties in nicely with what we're doing at the Depot Plaza. So I think that we need to look, seriously. I mean, the Canton area lighting can stay up all year round, like we have on Main Street. Shade sales would be a public works work order to take those down in the winter and putting them back up in this. And how much would that take? What really? But we could store that pretty easily, I would think. We move them into Kalen's office.
I won't speak for Steve, but as part of, when we do close down the road, there are processes that staff have to go through already, so that would just be adding one additional task for them to complete.
Good. Anybody else have any other comments?
I agree with you.
It's what the people have asked for.
It is. It's what we've
So
been
we'll see,
showing
but,
them for a
it's got,
couple of years too.
But you got to also remember, I've talked about this with staff too. We have a hard deadline to use the $850,000. It has to be spent, otherwise we lose it. This also would be a TIF eligible expense in a year or so. So those are the kind of things that I'm looking for. When we were talking about construction season this year, one of the questions I was going to ask: when does our grant expire? And if it can go into the next year, that would give us another opportunity to gather more TIF funds to offset some of the cost of this. Not necessarily, all the restaurants have been talked to about this. We've had meetings with, staff has had meetings with the restaurants. They all seem to be on board. They all like the Canton area lighting with the shade sales, every one of them.
But the grant is for the total project, not just the shade.
No, it's the total project, so that's,
Okay.
yeah.
So if you go back to the hard numbers, not including the enhancements, what is that?
But that's gone up to $800,000.
Correct.
So that would be, pardon me? Yeah.
Got it. Thank you.
But the project that's proposed here just covers Spring Street. So if we're talking about shades, we're just putting them there, not possibly where they're needed even more, which is on Main Street.
Well, we couldn't, I mean, we very rarely close Main Street. There wouldn't be people gathering around Main Street because we only close it during Main Street Fest and Cruise Night.
But what I'm saying is, if people still walking around even on the weekends, cruise nights, it's sun all the time on Main Street. You know it better than I do.
Yeah.
I'm just simply asking the question about the cost estimate. Has nothing to do with putting sales on Main Street.
Correct. These are specifically for Spring Street.
Okay.
Katie, do you have what you're looking for?
Yes, it sounds like move forward with the shade structures. I will be receiving an updated cost estimate that will be itemized, and I will share that with you as soon as I have
Thanks.
it.
And everything comes down to the almighty dollar, right, Kelly? She's sitting there with a grin on her face like, how are you going to pay for this? We'll work it out. But thank you to the board for this, and thank you to our consultants for taking the time to do this. It was fun having those meetings with you. We look forward to the final project coming to fruition.
Thank you, everyone. We appreciate your feedback.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Our next on the agenda is the meat and bones of our CIP, which discussing fiscal year 2027, our capital improvement plan. Who's going to kick this off? Nick? Thank you, Nick.
All right, here we are. Thank you, everyone, for attending tonight. Tonight, we'll be discussing the fiscal year 2031 capital improvement program. Of course, we want to kick it off introducing all the staff that you may see over on the right side of the room. We did bring in all the reinforcements to answer any questions that the village board may have. As always, I'm Nick Radcliffe. We have our finance director, Kelly Brainerd, our public works director, Kayla Noonan, our capital projects manager, Katie Ward, our public works superintendent, Steve Kopaz, superintendent of utilities, Matt Anderson, our new police chief, Nathan Hayes, Deputy Chief Scott Nadenoff, Deputy Chief Chad Fetzer, Director of Community Development Brian Simmons, and our IT consultant Juan Miranda. And of course, we're joined by our village administrator, Eric Morimoto. All right, so just like every year, we have our CIP workshop agenda. We're going to go over the budget schedule. our CIP meeting objectives, and then go over our last year accomplishments. The CIP itself will highlight several sections as noted in the column 2. We'll project our total 5-year CIP costs and review all our existing revenue sources, and then open it up for any feedback and questions. As you can see here, tonight we're at workshop number 1, our capital improvement program, January 27th, 2026. Once we get through this phase of the process, we'll go to workshop number 2 on March 10th, 2026, so please mark your calendars. And then our final budget consideration will be on April 7th, 2026. As with every year, we have meeting objectives to complete the CIP process. We want to identify and prioritize major projects. Capital projects are one of the largest expenditures of resources in our annual budget. And a CIP is a tool to inform the public and the village board of multi-year plans for planned and potential capital improvements. Yes, the CIP discussion itself allows staff to receive feedback from the village board and answer any questions that you might have. It is meant to be a guiding document for staff to utilize. And just please keep in mind that these costs are estimated, especially once we get to 2030, 2031. And then please note that today's meeting is for discussion only. There will be no final decisions made at this time. Typically with CIPs, we want to align it with our strategic priorities. As you can tell from this chart right here, there are a couple newer additions from the past few years with environmental sustainability, workforce development, and of course a focus on financial sustainability and economic development. So capital improvement plans aren't always just infrastructure. It could be expanded upon. Next, we're going to jump into all our accomplishments. And before I go on, I just want to note to the village board that feel free to interrupt us at any point, but we will have scheduled breaks for questions throughout the presentation. So next, I'll hand it off to Community Development Director, Mr. Simmons.
All the way down there.
At the end, yes. All the way at the end. If you can see me back here.
I got to get my binoculars out.
To say the least, 2025 was a busy year for community development. We had a lot of activity that occurred within the community that caused a lot of permits to be issued. So we set a record for permits issued this year, over 2,400 permits. That's usually double what our annual permit value is. I was just looking at numbers here. We issued over 1,100 roof permits in the third or the fourth quarter of last year due to the storm event that we had in August. So kudos to my staff from a standpoint of working through that time period. We were able to get a large volume of permits issued. We were working extra hours and whatnot to get that accomplished, but staff was able to charge through that, and we finally caught up to the volume that we have coming in as being processed as normal at this point. With that, we're seeing obviously a large number of inspections as well from timing of our consultants to do those inspections for those permits. Things that we implemented this year, we implemented the online permitting application process, which was very timely in advance of the storm. That did help with some of the workloads, so we were able to have consultants or contractors submit their applications directly online. Also, with that, we're able to have them schedule inspections directly through our web portal as well, so that did free up staff time of answering phones and being able to schedule work that's being performed in the community from that standpoint. The larger projects that the staff worked on included the what's now referred to as High Road Extension, Maplewood Access Road, the Phase 1 study for that roadway. We worked with the engineering consultant to host public houses related to that project and complete the Phase 1 analysis for where that roadway would begin and end, and that has led into the Phase 2 portion of the project, which is currently underway. We also, from the economic development side, implemented some marketing signs throughout the community. We're still working with some property owners for some additional sites that we can advertise for development opportunities within the community. We have had some positive feedback from those, both from the property owners and from the general public, that has generated some calls related to some of those properties that hopefully will transition into developments. The department also reviewed 2 large projects, obviously with the Seasons of Carry project that went through the zoning process this year. That took up a lot of staff time, also from a review standpoint, but also a number of public meetings related to that project, and that's currently in the process of submitting for permits. And also staff has been highly involved in the Maplewood redevelopment, and working with the consultant on that development and the recent redevelopment agreement that was signed earlier this month. So that's kind of an overview of the activities that community development has undertaken this past year.
Thank you, Mr. Simmons. Now next will be the Police Department with Deputy Chief Scott Naninoff.
Good evening. A couple highlights for the police department over the past year. We were busy putting the village's money to good use for us for smarter and safer policing. Starting with our portable radio replacement, that was a pretty large purchase for us. You'll see we replaced our old APX 6000 radios with some new Motorola N70 radios. They give us some redundancy options where we can operate on Wi-Fi and also on cellular, so there's a safety component with that for the officer. That was a nice addition for us. As you're aware, an unfunded mandate of body-worn cameras for us went into effect January 1st, 2025, so we were a little bit ahead of the curve in implementing that. We went with Motorola for those services for our in-car cameras and our body-worn cameras, and we've been very pleased so far with the performance we've gotten out of those products. Tasers, that little yellow thing you see on the bottom there, our old tasers, which are considered, they're called an electronic control device or electronic control weapon, is basically a force option for the police officers. We first purchased our current taser models about 12 years ago, the X26P, and like any other technology, that's now antiquated technology, so those have come to end of life or end of serviceable life, and this is just a new improved technology that's going to make policing safer for our officers out in the community. I'd like to note that with the purchase of the tasers, we were able to supplement that purchase with a grant through ILEAS, so we didn't take on the full cost of purchasing those tasers. Honor Guard, we added the 2 officers to the Honor Guard. I'm sure many of you saw the Honor Guard post the colors for the chief's retirement. That was pretty cool. Those were our 2 officers up there doing that. We received a small monetary donation from Cary Grove Crime Stoppers toward those, yes, gotta give the shout out, toward the uniforms. Those uniforms turned out to be pretty expensive, but we're very proud to have 2 officers on the Honor Guard. We haven't had an officer assigned to that for at least 10 years. This isn't anything new, but the village, through the police department, contributes $5,000 annually to the Pioneer Center. If some of you recall, several years ago, there was a push to move the homeless shelters in the winter to one static location in the county instead of moving them around. So that's our contribution to that. Excuse me. And then as part of our participation in the McHenry County Regional Training Center, we contributed funds to purchase what is called a Milo virtual reality training system. It's a really neat system. If anybody ever wants to go over there and take a look at it, we'd be happy to show you. But what's really important about that is the most difficult, again, unfunded training mandate that we have to meet is what they call scenario-based training, and the training we can do through this system will count as that scenario-based training, and it's right here in town, and our officers can participate in that training on duty. So there's incredible value there for us as a police department. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Chief. Now on over to Public Works Department with Director Noonan.
Just like the police department and community development, Public Works stayed very busy this year. The largest of the projects that took place this year is the Well 14 launch of that project and groundbreaking. As you know, we officially broke ground on Well 14, and it's a critical investment to our long-term water supply and system reliability. The project was made possible by $12 million loan forgiveness through the IEPA, meaning that no local taxpayer will be responsible for repayment on that project. Water Tower 1, we also did the rehabilitation and repainting of that off of High Road. And as Deputy Nadenoff mentioned, unfunded mandates, our local water department completed the lead service line replacement program. This was our second phase of that project. We were able to complete that second and final phase before the EPA mandated that other municipalities were required to do so. Another big project that took place that we were not expecting was a storm recovery in August. Public Works was able to fully restore the village right-of-ways within 2 weeks with the efforts of mutual aid from other local agencies. Outside of those top projects, I would call, there's a lot of stuff behind the scenes that doesn't go noticed. So a few of those include screw pump replacements that took place at wastewater treatment plant, Bright Oaks water main replacement, Fox Trails lift station replacement. Public Works responded to almost 1,700 Julie requests that we get on a regular basis, and we've implemented another requirement through Julie is a new system that they're implementing. So we're able to tap into that system that they have through our GIS system. So our requests come in through that, and our Public Works staff's able to access that, get the information, respond to the Julie that we're either clear or it's been marked out. So so far we've got several winter snow events, and last summer we replaced almost 6,000 square feet of sidewalk.
Thank you, Director Noonan. And then for the Village Administrator's Office, our accomplishments. As a reminder, Village Administrator's Office oversees several functions throughout the village, including administration, budget, finance, GIS, human resources, IT, legal, and risk management. This past year, we implemented our first ever micro internship program, spring program with District 155, as you can see in the bottom graphic. Over several weeks, we had 3 students from District 155, 3 seniors that spent 1 hour each week with each department. Got exposed to what local government is, and it was really well received. So we're planning on continuing that partnership with District 155. As in every year, our summer and seasonal internship program. We typically have a summer intern here at Village Hall, and then up to 2 seasonals with Public Works, hoping to continue that as well. Earlier in the summer of last year, we implemented a new communications plan to help create a more formal piece of communication for staff to follow, which includes press releases and social media posts, things of that nature. We have our annual audit clean opinion, our AA2 bond rating, which are very wonderful, so thank you to the Finance Department and for all staff. We'll touch on a little bit later as well, but the Cary Main Street Fest planning and implementation, we're going to be continuing on to our 3rd year since bringing it back. Looking forward to continuing that. And then a very busy year in the Human Resource Department. Onboarded our new police chief, our assistant village administrator, capital projects manager, patrol officer, permit assistant, and chief utility operator. So a few staff in every department. And right here, I guess we'll take a little break. We went over all our accomplishments from the past year, and just curious if the board had any questions, or should we carry on?
I say carry on, but well done.
Very good. C-A-R-Y, carry on.
Next, we'll move on to the downtown improvements. Slowly but surely, we are completing the Depot Plaza improvements at the Community Plaza. Completion 2026 is what we're on track for now. We've been working closely with the state to make sure that we're holding the contractor accountable and making progress. We've encountered a few weather delays lately, but they have completed the shelter. They're currently working on completing the fireplace. We have the seating completed, paver fields, trees planted, as well as some of the beds prepped for plantings this spring. So we are on track for this spring. We did encounter a few delays due to long lead times, some unforeseen conditions, and other delays that were outside of the village's control after construction had started. Remaining work includes installation of the decorative light poles, electrical work, concrete and brick paver installation. And we also are completing the bike rack installation as well as a bike fix station. So they will be on site and you'll be seeing them working. Next slide. We did just talk about the alfresco alley improvements. The proposed permanent improvements are what they went over with the brick pavers, the shade features from the trees, as well as some seating. Again, these enhancements can be scaled down to get those within budget. We do have those temporary features we were looking at that would be during the time that it's active, like the shade sail structure. After considering the amount that was spent on design, anticipated for construction engineering, and all of the studies that were done in the space, as well as soil borings, we are going to have approximately $702,000 remaining for construction from that $850,000 grant. Here's an overview of those downtown improvements that we just went over. We are looking for board direction on EV charging that would actually be at the municipal center. As part of the metro improvements, we may be doing EV charging infrastructure in the metro lot. That would be part of the High Road Access Project. We also have the $105,000 for the modular anti-vehicle intrusion barriers, which would be put in place. They can be moved, they aren't permanent fixtures, made for securing areas when we close off the downtown.
Thank you, Katie, and I think this is a great place to pause and get any questions. As mentioned from the board, we are looking for direction. It's a few years out, but for electrical vehicle charging stations, this one is specific in the Metra commuter lots. Just please keep in mind that typically 2 chargers would include that $60,000. We already have some forward thinking with conduit already put into place, but these 2 chargers would take up essentially 4 parking stalls in the commuter lots. So we were hoping to get some feedback from the board.
I'd like to see if we can get some grants around that. I'm sure ComEd has something.
Grants are dwindling.
Not with your electric
Carpe
company.
diem, then let's talk on that.
Say your electric company just keeps on expanding, but there's also other providers that are out there. You can look into Ford, Tesla. They're all going to have grants that are going to be associated with actually doing charging stations.
I think that at some point we have to have it in there because at some point it's not going to be just a want. It's going to be a need for people. I like the idea that it's in Metra. I don't like it being on the regular Main Street somewhere that you're going to take up parking spots there. I think that would not be a wise decision. But I would agree. I'd love to see if we can get somehow, somewhere, some help with the grant for that because, as the mayor mentioned, it is dwindling, but the need is increasing for EV stations.
If you had it in Metro, is there going to be a time limit to those spots?
That's a good question.
Well,
the thing that I mean, I'm just going to throw this out there. It's going to be in public record. We don't have the capability or the area within our downtown to do it, other than the Metro lot. Right now, we have a surplus of parking spots there, but hopefully that's going to come back. But I just have I have a fundamental problem with cannibalizing 4 parking spaces in the event that somebody would want to go charge their car. And I know that people would want to, if they're, where do you put them? Do you put them close? And then the people that want to park close, do you do it in the permit parking? We were very fortunate to add the 16 new parking spaces in downtown. Unfortunately, that's where the conduit is, correct?
I believe the conduit is located near the Metro lots. I'm not sure the exact
Yeah,
location.
I think it was when we did the extra 16 spots, so we would lose, so we'd only have 12 spots. So it would be in our lot.
Do you know the exact location, team?
They're the 6-hour lot. It was originally installed with the intention it would be within the 6-hour lot, the row right adjacent to Harris Bank.
Right, that's right. Where,
Yeah.
That's right where I thought it was, yeah. So, and then, you know, we don't have gas pumps in downtown either. Just saying.
If I could come in from a different direction, I agree with your premise of a couple of reasons. A few that I'll lay out. Number one, the capacity of vehicles is getting so much larger. It's not as much of a need of a daily quality electric car user to have them in every spot. I don't know that it's the position of the municipality that we should afford people that opportunity. And number two, as you get another 10 slides deep in here and we start talking about the roads in town, this I wouldn't have a problem with if it was funded by somebody else. But we need to be as creative as we can and come up with every penny, because when we get to the slides that show what needs to be done on the roads in this town and then what we are actually going to do, I'll save my comments for them, but it's not good. So in this particular case, my direction from my little corner of the board is I'm not interested in funding this.
Now, don't forget, you're also talking 28, 29. You're not talking now.
Yeah, you'll see
For the
what gets
record.
paved in 26, 27, 28, and 29 on a
I'm
future
with you.
slide, and it's going to be horrific.
I think that if it's something that can be funded somewhere else, then I'm okay with looking at it. I don't necessarily want to take it out of our budget either, because we're not flush with cash.
Sounds like the answer is we pull it. Move on.
Okay, next.
Thank you, Village Board. We'll move on to the next slide here. We're going to be going over community image and engagement. To kick it off, we're going to talk about Cary Main Street Fest. We already received direction from the Village Board late last year to continue our partnership with the Chamber of Commerce. It was a great help putting the event together with a 50-50 split. Please put in your calendar the following dates: September 25th, 26th, 27th. That's when Cary Main Street Fest will be taking place. We are going to have some great headliners on Friday night. We have Pino Farina, and then on Saturday night, Midwest Classic, Mike and Joe. It's a really great lineup. I might be biased, but it might be one of the best years yet. And then real quickly, I just want to go over how we did last year. We had a total income of $76,000 with total expenses at $64,000 with a net profit of $12,000, which we split evenly between the chamber and the village at $6,000 apiece. So we did have some unfortunate competition with Luke Bryan performing in a community right next door. And then on Saturday night, we did experience a little bit of rain. So we're really looking forward to seeing what Cary Main Street Fest can become this year.
This past year, we completed our second year of the Public Works of Art program in conjunction with Cary Grove High School and their assistance. We have planned and programmed to continue that partnership with the high school for installations in the next fiscal year. In future years, just ideas we could come up with that we usually brainstorm with the high school, what the students are interested in, what they think might be best suited for their class that year. But some ideas are continuing with the light controllers. We've talked about trucks. When we did the light controller cabinets, utility cabinet wraps for generators and lift station cabinets as well are ideas. The ideas remain endless. We've talked about existing other buildings, well houses, et cetera, that are surrounding the village that we could continue that program. We have budgeted $2,000 between utilities and general fund accounts, as well as an additional $15,000 for downtown mural arts installations in the art program. And as a reminder, the Arts and Events Commission is planned to be created and will help inform and create these public works of art.
This has been a very well-received program in town. People absolutely love it. I'm glad that we're finding other opportunities to use this to expand it. Community really likes it.
Another item that we would like direction from the board is regarding banners, particularly during the summer. The three options are to keep it the same with cruise night banners supplied by the Chamber of Commerce. Option B, our in-house artist, Mackenzie, drew this up as a example of what could be a banner that matches what we have down there and has a spot for the sponsor name. Or we could go with just banners that match the style that we have already and not put up any cruise night banners, but the cruise night banners are the main source of funding for the Chamber of Commerce.
Yeah, I would definitely say we need to do something with the sponsorships, otherwise cruise nights are not going to continue. So, you know, I look at it and I say, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Why do I want to spend $8,000 if we've got something that's not going to cost us anything? But I'm open to what the board thinks about it, but I think we definitely need to have something with a sponsorship. Otherwise, what we're telling the chamber is that we don't want cruise night to continue.
I would say we do, on a personal level, we do want cruise night to continue. It's good for the businesses. It's good for friends and family. It's a great spot to gather. It's something to look forward to every year. I am with you in terms of if it ain't broke, don't fix it. With all the expenses that are contained within the CIP, trimming the fat and finding ways to save money at any cost is important.
Yeah, option A for me.
Anthony?
If I had to choose between the three, yeah, A.
Rick?
I think B or C is very cool, but it's the cost that, you know, is challenging. B especially I find very, very attractive. So kudos to, that was the in-house designer you mentioned?
Yes.
Great job. I think
Good
that
point. They
looks-
look great.
Yeah, you know, and at the end of the day, it's not a ton of money, but my choice would be B if we had the money.
Could we? Would this be something that gets brought back for discussion in next year's CIP?
Come back every year.
It comes back every year, so we can sort of assess what's been done and where we're at, and have the discussion again.
Well, in regards to this, staff and I had a conversation about this very thing. I really liked B.
Oh, I do too.
I think it looks really sharp. If we can incorporate B to make the sponsor name a little bit bigger, I think that would be, but if we could do something to dial this other one up a little bit, you know, if they're gonna, you know, I don't know, I just think, I think this is, you know, we're spending an enormous amount of money downtown, and this will be throughout the town, not downtown. You know, I have been asked to see if maybe Mackenzie could make the buildings look a little bit like Main Street, because it highlights Main Street there. And if they did something design-wise to have the sponsor name kind of be the focal point down at the bottom, I think that it's a win-win situation.
There's nothing wrong with selling two sponsorships, the sponsorship for cruise night and then another one across the bottom. If you can get $8,000 worth of sponsorships about the secondary sponsorships, I'd be all for option B.
I agree. I mean,
Yeah.
but I think it's, to me, our first step is to reach out to the chamber, see what their thoughts are.
You took the words right out of my mouth.
I took them right out. Because obviously when you're looking at it from a visually, there's no question B is very visually appealing. But again, I'm just trying to tighten the old straps here with regards to what we're spending. So
Well,
if we can do something in conjunction with them, then I'm all for it.
We made 12 grand from Cary Fest.
Yeah,
Our
I
half
know.
is 6 grand. The cost of the banners is 6 grand. Still money spent in the downtown. So just another thing to think of. That.
Well, let's see what the
Let's-
chamber.
I say let's
see if
talk
they
to the
if they have
chamber.
any problems with the, you know, making the sponsor name much bigger, and that's I think that what they're looking for. They want the name recognition.
They have to have
And
that.
We don't want, just so we're clear, we do not want Cruise Night going away. We want to work
Correct.
with the chamber. I think we've got a good partnership with them, and we'll kind of see what they have to say. But I'm hearing no one wants to spend any money on this, and see if maybe we can make B look like A and not cost us any money. Just a thought. Thank you.
I'll go on record and say I'll eliminate a couple of new benches on Spring Street and go with the banners, just because you're asking.
Well, Steve's already come up with a recommendation for something because, you know, we're getting hit by every bench has carry on it. That when we order the new benches, we'll move some of the ones from Main Street that say carry downtown. So, you know, we are problem solving. We always look for solutions here. It won't cost us any money, right? So I had to give a shout out to Steve because that was his idea.
Thank you. In continuation with the banners, we were budgeting $6,000 to get spring and summer style banners. The ones above fall and winter, we already have those, and we have we put them out this year. So the plan was to buy ones for spring and summer, though that might be affected by cruise night banners.
I would think summer's going to be cruise night banners, so we only need spring. So maybe it's only $3,000. You're saving money.
I was also going to mention with the spring and summer banners, there could be ideas to come from this when we do meet with the chamber and throw out option B to them, where we entertain, instead of doing the spring or the summer, one of them, we contribute with the cruise nights. So that could be an option for us to entertain.
And just for clarity, for the cruise night one sponsor, they're paying for a sponsorship.
Correct.
Right? So in theory,
Businesses.
they could be, the businesses. So in theory, it could just pay for itself.
No, that sponsorship, though, is used for the cost to host
We don't get that
cruise.
sponsorship
We don't get
money.
that money.
The chamber does.
The chamber
Okay.
does.
So could you say, hey, if you want a banner, it's X more for the sponsorship?
That's, I think, what we need to
That's-
ask the chamber, but
okay.
I think that they're already collecting a fair amount for that. But
Got it.
that's, I think, where we start off with saying what's being spent where and how can we be effective with this.
Downtown decorations, with the plaza coming up on completion here, we've increased the budget for the next 2 years. Next year, with board direction, we increased it to $30,000. That would be decorating the plaza. We're looking for some direction on what kind of decorations you'd like to see.
Hey, Steve, can I stop you for a second?
Sure.
Maybe you want to tell Trustee Dudek what's the highlight of that decoration that you're considering?
I was getting to the possibility of a 16-foot artificial tree,
16 feet.
but that is 10 to 20,000.
Okay, so let's say I first was on the board in 2007, $1,000 a year, we would have paid for that.
You're getting a Christmas tree in downtown.
Hallelujah.
I was too. I'm like, that's what I was like. This is right up Dudek's alley. He is gonna love this.
In the plaza.
Front and center.
That's where it has to be if we have it, because we had that other tree in the back that we would light sometimes after the parade, and
Which I was told has to come down.
well, it
It's-
probably does.
it's
It's
broken?
a dead tree, probably.
It was
Damaged.
damaged during the storm in
Surprised it
August.
didn't come down.
So as it relates to the question you have here about additional decorations, personally, I think the decorations downtown look beautiful. What I have heard from people is there is too many of them because it's a relatively small area in some people's minds. I would suggest that we think about perhaps taking some of the ones that are already there and moving them and maybe paring the cost down for some additional ones, but not have to put the magnitude of stuff that we have on Main Street, so close over in the plaza. Because I have heard from a number of people, it seems like it's overkill.
I would agree with you that I think there's an opportunity. Now we can move them around the corner, a couple on Spring Street. And I would also agree with, reusing them for as long as possible to try and cut down on some of the future expenditures for that. And I know that there's a big wish to do something big with the opening of the new plaza. I can appreciate that. So a little bump in 26, 27. If we could find a way to level it off by reusing in subsequent years, I would agree with Trustee Dudek on that.
Is this
I'll
specific
agree.
to Christmas, or is this other holidays as well?
Currently, we only decorate for Christmas.
Got it.
There hasn't been any real direction for other holidays.
Thanks. I agree. I think, Rick,
I
good
agree.
idea. We can spread out some of the stuff that we have right now, relocate some of that in the plaza and on Spring Street.
I think people loved how nice, though, with even the red and green light. I mean, there's just been a huge improvement that I think people have noticed, but time to just rethink it a little bit and reallocate. Love it.
So what we're hearing from the village board is to go ahead and move forward with looking into the 16-foot tree in the Depot Plaza area, and then increase our Christmas decorations for fiscal year 26-27, and then kind of taper off after that and reuse.
May I ask one follow-up question on the tree front? I understand the direction we're looking to go in is a fake tree. Is there any opportunity, and what are the pitfalls? We don't have to answer this tonight, but what are the pitfalls or opportunities of seeing if somebody would donate a large tree? I know they do that in Chicago. I don't know if there is an opportunity there, but if there could be a donation of a similar sized tree, maybe.
Are you talking like a real one each year that like maybe a company does, like a private partnership with us?
Excellent ideas. I don't have a fully formed notion, just trying to think of ways outside the box to maybe kick the $10,000 fake tree can down the road.
Or someone has a tree that they want to get rid of.
Also,
That's what he's talking about.
yeah. If somebody has a tree that they have to get rid of, we can use it.
You have to be big.
Ma'am, just want to make one quick comment relative to downtown and festivals. I think I've said in the past, or asked in the past, for us to look into like a harvest festival. With the money that we will have invested in downtown by the summer of this year, or certainly by the fall of this year, it seems to me like what really draws a lot of people downtown is when we do something, whether it's the car festivals, or it's the music festivals, or Alfredo on a beautiful Friday afternoon. To me, it's like when you invest in an asset, you want to get your return on that asset as much as possible. I would strongly suggest that we look into some sort of a fall festival.
Kind of like how Crystal Lake does that Johnny Appleseed Festival.
Not just Crystal Lake, everybody.
Yeah, I know. I'm
No,
just giving something that's close to us.
Might be getting a little bit ahead of us, which is why this is the year we're going to do the Arts and Entertainment Commission that would help us
I think
do
that'll help
something
us.
like this. More programming we want downtown.
Yeah, and I believe with just all the organizations throughout the community, it seems that during the spring is when we kind of have a dead time between festivals and entertainment down there. So it's definitely worth entertaining some type of spring event to kick off before the summer.
Next, we have our wayfinding and entry sign landscaping under our community signage still. As you know, we have our new wayfinding signage that was approved a little over a year ago. We started to install those throughout towns in the right-of-way. We plan to complete the second phase of the wayfinding signage program this upcoming fiscal year, which will be the second and final phase of that. Includes installing the remainder of the wayfinding signs in IDOT and McHenry County DOT right-of-way. We've been in contact with them, sent them preliminary locations. They've asked for a little bit more information, so we've been working on getting that back to them so that we can move the process ahead before we go out to bid. They've got an idea, so once we get them actual permit application, they have everything that they need. We can move along, hopefully a little bit quicker. We also anticipate completing entryway signage landscaping to help the beautification of the entryway signs that you see when you come into the village. We've received quite a bit of feedback over the last year on that. This would be for annual plantings, weedings, mulching, and general upkeep of that signage. As I just mentioned, the community signage, the remainder of those sign locations you can see highlighted in green. We successfully completed phase 1 of that wayfinding signage. Those were in the village right away. County and state is phase 2. We plan to do that this year. We have 4 signs within the state right-of-way remaining and 3 signs within the county right-of-way. Another item under community signage is the US 14 illuminated street name signs. This project has been on the docket for a little bit. It is shovel ready. These signs are similar to the ones that you see at High Road and West Main Street. Continuing with this project, we may, based on feedback that we've gotten, might not be exactly that sign, but something similar that we've been looking at installing along US 14. It gives a little branding to the village as you're driving through town to see exactly what town you're in as you're driving down a major highway with as many cars that go up and down Route 14. It mentioned it is shovel ready. Estimated cost is around $160,000, and it is partially TIF eligible with the signs on US 14.
Can I just ask a question on that? Could you define what that means, partial TIF eligible?
Anything that's located within the TIF district would be TIF eligible, so basically anything from Cary Algonquin Road on Route 14 all the way down to Jandis Cutoff.
Okay, so the ones that are in the TIF are eligible, and if it isn't, then it's not.
Correct.
Thank you.
Here's a summary of the community signage and street lights that we just went over. Some items, larger items to note are the ones that we just talked about, the illuminated street name signs. That's $160,000 in fiscal year 28-29. We also have in the program an LED street light replacement for all the remaining street lights that are not LED. We estimate that this would get us approximately 200 lights to be replaced, which would, our goal is that 200 would be right around as many as we have remaining, so we would be all LED lights.
Were there any questions from the board on the previous slide here?
The LED street light replacement, is that done internally or is that a contract out?
That would be something that we, if there was retro kits we could potentially put in, but would be hired out by a company to complete.
All right, moving along to economic development for Director Simmons.
A few projects that we have listed in the CIP for this year are actually ones that we had in last year. Just due to workload that occurred this past year, we weren't able to get to these items, so they're kind of carried forward into the next CIP fiscal year, which would be the comp plan sub-area update, is what we discussed last year. Was not a full rewrite of the comprehensive plan, but looking at certain sub-areas within the village that could require some recent planning efforts to kind of respond to the development activity that we've seen, primarily the area around Village Hall here, the vacant lots that we have, looking at possibly putting together some concept plans for those areas to spur some additional development in this end of the village. Also was a discussion for doing a strategic priorities update workshop with the village board to put together an action plan for items for the next 5-year time period.
Thank you, Director Simmons. Next, as part of economic development, we have our level 1 partnership with Naturally McHenry County, a $10,000 investment. Here you can see some of the highlights as McHenry County in a whole over 2024. You can see the visitor spending, the employment rates. It's important to note that tourism growth from 23 to 24, McHenry County is ranked number 1 among the 5 Chicago collar counties, which is pretty impressive. Out of the 102 counties, McHenry County is listed as number 13 for visitor spending. In the past year itself, specific to the village of Cary, we had one really nice event, Cary Uncovered, where we encourage residents and visitors and patrons to visit our other parks throughout the area. It was actually one of the most involved and checked in out of all the events that Naturally McHenry County put on in partnership with other communities. So that was nice to be a part of that process. You can see on the right, based on our $10,000 investment, the value of the investment for 2025 was estimated at over $71,000. So it's a great investment for the village of Cary, just based on the social media, the website, the influencers that a lot of the millennials might see on TikTok and throughout that area. So there's been a great investment for the village of Cary with this partnership. Also, as part of the Naturally McHenry County Board, which we are grateful to have the vice chair sitting next to me on my right, Mr. Morimoto. But the board recently went through their strategic plan, which was approved in August of last year, with the main goals of promotion, growth, and organizational excellence. So part of that, they will be creating smaller subcommittees to get the board and other businesses more involved to help expand Naturally McHenry County's mission. Next, I'll hand it back off to Director Simmons.
And this project is related to the what was referred to as the Maplewood Access Road. We're rebranding it. The High Road Extension as a road will connect to High Road in the downtown area and would just maintain that street name throughout the corridor when the roadway is constructed until it intersects with Cary Algonquin and Industrial Drive. So it would be High Road from Cary Algonquin Road through downtown and into the Brigadoon subdivision. So the wrapping up final touches of phase 1 design. There's a couple elements that are related to that. But we started phase 2 design, which is the actual construction drawings and right-of-way acquisition for the roadway will be in this fiscal year and carried into a next fiscal year for a total cost of about $1.2 million. And then we're anticipating construction of the project to begin in 27. That would align with the redevelopment of the Maplewood property and it will be completed in anticipation of that project also in 2028. And the total construction project is anticipated about $10 million for that roadway from end to end to be constructed. As part of that, there's also a connection for water services that would improve water capacity within the area to the east of Cary Algonquin Road. This slide just summarizes the items within the economic development purview within the CIP, continuing the existing facade grant program, both within the TIF and outside the TIF. Those dollar amounts are the same as what we've had budgeted the last 2 years, $40,000 in the TIF and $25,000 outside the TIF. And then the other elements, as discussed, related to the High Road extension and a couple of elements related to the redevelopment agreement with the Maplewood property for the demolition of the school, and also some improvements in the Frankie subdivision related to that project.
Thank you, Director Simmons. Are there any questions from the board regarding economic development? Very good. We'll move on to our next slide on technology. Here we are proposing our telephone service and system replacement. It's been in the budget for the past few years, and it quickly approached. We've heard from residents and staff throughout the community to try and improve our phone system. Our phone system is a little dated, and going into some of these newer options can give us more flexibility, such as automated voice messages. Right now, when we run into those issues where we might need to change our automated recording, we have to actually reach out to an outside consultant to then complete that and charge us for it. With the newer technology, we can actually go in there, type in our text that we want to say, and it'll create the automated message for us. This will also increase our better phone quality for residents to call in and gives us more flexibility.
Finally.
Next, we'll hand it off to the police department.
The police department's looking to purchase a traffic data software that I think will greatly help us as well as Public Works. Some of the things that it collects is it'll give you the average speed, 85th percentile, 95th percentile, collision index score, as well as traffic counts, and it breaks it down by block in the city limits, as far as by day, by hour, by direction of travel, and just kind of gives us an overall view of all the traffic in town. It'll help the police department by addressing traffic complaints. So as we've all known, we've put up radar signs everywhere. We've spent countless hours of directed patrol from the police department to sit and just run radar in certain areas. This will give us data that will tell us everything we need to know without spending that time to do it. It will allow us to email the complainants to show them, here is exactly the data of the area and time that you complained about. And it'll either show that there's not an issue, or it'll show that there is an issue that then we can address at the police department. As far as proactive enforcement, we can set limits to send alerts to the police department anytime it hits a certain threshold. So if we set a threshold for an average speed of over 10 miles an hour, it'll automatically alert the police department to say, here's an issue of speeding in this area, and I can send out our shifts to go proactively enforce that area. With the new construction projects going in, I know traffic volume has been a big point of contention. This will allow us to put an accurate count by hourly traffic, daily traffic, direction of travel, and pick areas that need to be monitored or areas where there may be additional traffic control devices installed. Kind of replaces all the cables that Public Works would have to go out and lay in a specific area. I've looked into multiple other softwares besides Urban SDK that have offered similar things, and as Eric likes to say, it's apples to oranges. There's some that offer similar data that are significantly more expensive. There are some others that utilize the flock cameras but only give us data where those flock cameras are, and there are some that just won't allow police departments to utilize that data for any kind of enforcement. So kind of doing some research through multiple companies, that this one appears to be the best for what we're looking for.
100%.
Yeah,
100%.
This looks like a wonderful investment for you to be able to police better. Also, it's going to help you to be more effective in deploying your patrol, whatever you're going to do with that. But we hear this over and over again, and this looks like a great tool. So,
yeah, Deputy Fetzer has shown us during when we were going through New Haven thing. He pulled it up on the screen, and he can go right to the intersection on New Haven or whatever road it was, and it'll tell you exactly what the traffic count was, what was the average speed. I mean, that's vital information. That's going to help us solve a lot of the problems that people have. We're told all the time that people don't realize that speed is different. Like people say, oh, this car's speeding, and then you hold a speed gun in there. Well, the car's really not speeding. So I think this will help us. We'll be more effective. I think this is the direction that we need to go. I really think this is great for our community policing.
Are there any other communities in the area that use this specific software, or would we be an early adopter?
So the last I asked him in November, the list of Illinois agencies that he had were Hinsdale, Deerfield, Wheaton, Champaign, Bartlett, Schaumburg, Homewood, Rockford, Lincolnwood, Crest Hill, Skokie, Bolingbrook, and Lombard.
So it's out there.
They're trying to gradually go out here. I know Algonquin has been talking to them, and they were looking for their next budget, and I believe Barrington as well.
I also appreciate just the crossover with Public Works for small in-house traffic studies. And then I believe we were talking about belt and suspenders for some of the outside consultants doing the larger traffic studies. This could help supplement their information or gut check it. I think there are a lot of benefits to this program.
Okay, real quick, because we're going to roads next, so I'll give you a technology summary here of what's being proposed. You've got some improvements in the budget worked in here for GIS services, primarily used for, or by Public Works, I should say. Some money this upcoming fiscal year for some improvements here in the boardroom, and additional TV, adding a camera. We use this room for many different purposes, obviously board meetings, so some updated technology there. Computer replacement program, just getting all the computers within the village on a standardized replacement schedule. As Assistant Administrator Radcliffe mentioned, the telephone system, this has been in the budget for several years. We just haven't moved forward with it, updating that system. And then deja vu here at the bottom. We already talked about some of these things, but it's the gift that keeps on giving, these technologies. There's typically what we do is we spread the cost of implementing these systems over a 5-year period. We try to pay the majority of the purchase up front, and then we spread out, we amortize the remainder of the payment. That's why when you look at specifically the body-worn and squad cameras, that's usually a 5-year cycle. So we're going into our 2nd year, and then in about 2 years, we will start to look at what is the next best technology for that usage. The tasers, in our current fiscal year, we made the purchase for 6 taser units, and what you're seeing here is an additional 4 units, which would get us to a total of 10, which allows us to have everyone deployed in patrol, armed with a taser, and then also with special events or if a unit were to go down for repair. So that's why you see a little bit of money to add those additional units. And then the portable radios with the technology and all the bells and whistles comes the annual cost of the licensing for those products.
Thank you, Deputy Chiefs. Next, we'll be going into roadway improvements and capital maintenance. Also, just want to make the whole village board aware that there were some changes to the proposed road program. So this will be the first time you're seeing it as well.
So as usual, this is the current pavement conditions for the roads. We are at a 66 PCI average, which is slightly up from last year. About 41% of our roads are in poor or worse conditions. The tally below that did change a little bit from last year, but not a lot. Just like the 19% good dropped down a little bit. The 24% fair rose a little bit. But other than that, there were no major changes in the overall condition of the roads. This is, the graph shows what the PCI scores would be with different kind of funding sources. You can see there is one there for a 0 budget. If we didn't do anything, that's our estimated PCI. The 670, which is the 790 MFT minus the engineering fees, that's what we typically do every year. And then the green line that goes up would be to reach and maintain a 70% PCI score, which is currently $10 million annually. If you remember from previous years, I think last year it was 5 million, a couple years before that it was 1 million, so every couple of years it goes up drastically. This is the map that Nick was talking about. We changed the approach for this one. We are targeting roads that are at a 35 PCI score or lower. There are a couple of roads in here that are programmed in here to be done because it correlates to projects that will be happening. Knollwood and Fox Trails, there was a couple major water main breaks, so we are going to fix the water lines in there and then repave that cul-de-sac. And then, as we'll talk later on, Industrial Drive will get repaved. Some of the other ones on here is the High Road extension, the New Haven extension, the lead service line work in Bright Oaks, the traffic signal improvements at Georgetown and Three Oaks, Hilltop sidewalk, which will be talked about a little bit later.
Any questions from the village board? As Steve did mention, over the next 2 fiscal years, we're really trying to put an emphasis on the roads with a lower score before it does get to that point of a total reconstruction and additional costs. So open up any questions or feedback from the village board.
I just have a quick question on First Street, because that's highlighted right in the pink.
We are still in a holding
Oh,
pattern,
okay.
unfortunately. You got it?
Oh, well, wait, I'm patient. Go ahead, next. It's the next slide. I'm just a little overzealous.
Okay.
All right, we'll continue on. Thank you, Village Board. Next, we'll hand it over to Public Works Director, Mr. Noonan.
Okay, I'm going to go over First Street for a little while here, so bear with me. First Street improvement is funded through the STP program, or Surface Transportation Program, which is a grant program where IDOT serves as the lead agency. Under the program, state funds the construction portion of the project, and the village is responsible for reimbursing that local match. Participation in the STP program provides the village 80% funding, while we pay the 20% funding on this project, which currently is estimated right around $1.4 million. The project was included in the January 25th IDOT letting, and the low bidder builder's paving was approved at the board level, if you remember. While the village may approve the low bid recommendation, IDOT retains that full authority to give the final award for the project, since they are the lead agency. At a later point, the village was advised that it was not, IDOT ultimately did not award the project, and informed the village that it was on an administrative hold, is what they were telling us. At a later point, the village was advised that we could reject all bids and bid the project with the intent, our intent was to rebid it in January of 2026. Upon follow-up with, IDOT, the village completed all the paperwork necessary to be on that January 2026 letting. However, when the notice of letting was released, First Street was not listed on that IDOT letting. Upon follow-up to IDOT, IDOT informed us at the village that the project remained on hold per IDOT Chief Counsel. Recently, there have been reports of litigation involving IDOT and bidders, the low bidder on this project, where the state's not awarding those contracts. You may have seen recently in the newspaper on January 9, 2026, a judge ruled in favor of IDOT. However, that doesn't mean that we can move forward with that project. We still, as far as we know, it's on an administrative hold per the Chief Counsel. Those are the emails and commentaries that we've got. The newspaper article mentioned builders obviously still has time to appeal. There's still processes in place that are going to go through the system. And IDOT's continuing their internal review, leaving this project in a holding pattern. We've kept the funding, as you can see in this slide here, in our program, so that we're ready to move forward as soon as IDOT gives us the go-ahead on our options moving forward. It's important to note that the delay is not on the village's side. It's completely IDOT and IDOT's Chief Counsel having this project on hold. Proceeding outside of the STP program would result in a loss of the village getting the 80% funding that we would otherwise be getting through that grant process. Additionally, just an item to note that the longer the project remains on hold, the greater risk of some increased construction costs due to inflation and market conditions. So with that being said, I'll focus back on the slide here. We do have it scheduled for construction and construction engineering. We budget for our local share of construction costs because IDOT fronts that, and then we budget for the full engineering cost because we front that and we request reimbursement from IDOT. It's a weird way they do it, but that's how they do it. So we budgeted $421,000 for upfront costs. Any comments on that? Yeah, go ahead.
Do we have any ability to reject the bidder and choose a different bidder? Because it sounds like the reason for the holdup is related to the bidder.
Yes, but We initially thought that's what we were told in May. But since IDOT is the lead agency on the project, they hold ultimate authority on it. So we can award and reject whoever we want through the project, but if IDOT's the one that is actually the lead agency on the project, so they're entering the contract with the contractor. They're doing the administrative side of it. We have our people working on it as well. We have an RE, but IDOT is the one that is paying them, and then they're requesting reimbursement from us, so they hold that contract with them.
Is there any, do we have any ability to get some sort of a timeline from IDOT where they'll make a decision one way or another?
At this point, the only information I've asked that all of these questions, I've been on them. The only answer that they are willing to give me at this time is that the project's on hold per their chief counsel, and they're sticking to their guns on that. We've asked to reject all bidders. We've asked to go to the second low bidder, and they've told us essentially. At one point, they told me yes, and we have documentation of that. But then once we went to process that and go through that January letting, and we didn't show up on that January letting, they said the project's on hold per chief counsel.
We're also looking at some other avenues through IDOT's administration.
That was going to be my question. I know we've had some pretty good luck with them in the past.
Very much, yeah. I'll be in Springfield in a couple of weeks.
I'm sorry if I missed this. When does that grant expire?
At this point, from what I'm told, because it goes through the Council of Mayors, so we have those meetings on a regular basis. We have a great relationship with them. I'm told that because the project was already bid and let, that the funding is there and we have the money available to us when it finally gets either released or rebid because of that process. That's what I was told through the council.
Got it. Thank you.
Yep. Okay, Hilltop Subdivision. Hilltop Subdivision, as you recall, this was programmed for this year as part of our capital plan. However, as the year went by, there was a grant opportunity that we thought this could be a great opportunity for us, so we didn't start the process for that in hopes that we would potentially get the grant. Ultimately, we were not awarded that grant, which brings it back to a locally funded decision. This project would be utilizing capital general fund funds for the project. As a reminder, the sidewalk layout is, as you see on the screen, strategically designed to improve pedestrian connectivity only where sidewalks are permitted while minimizing impacts to residents who previously expressed opposition. The intent was to balance safety and accessibility. And improvements through the neighborhood. Staff's seeking direction on if the board would like to keep this project program for the upcoming year and proceed as originally planned using local funds, or delay the project and revisit it for a future capital program.
May I ask a quick question? You had just said that when sort of identifying the layout of this project, you took into account the feedback that was received from the residents. I'm aware, as I'm sure we all are, that it seems like kind of a 50-50 split within this subdivision of, yes, we would like it, no, we would not like it. Do you have, and I don't want to put you on the spot, can you elaborate in any way on how the feedback was used to implement this design? Is it as simple as, hey, lot 127 here, you know, the center section, everyone said yes, so we're good there. Any information like that, just to help sort of give context of who might be upset by the proposal. I think you understand.
Yeah, it was a very controversial outreach that with this whole design. So we had open houses. We sent out a survey to the neighborhood. We had a good turnout on response, very good turnout on response within the homes. With the survey, we allowed 2 responses per house, and I think we were very successful in our response rate there. We analyze who would lose parking spaces within their driveway. We analyze how many spaces each would lose. And then by address, we figured out who wanted the sidewalks, who did not want the sidewalks. And then we analyze where there was existing sidewalk, where we would have enough right-of-way to, and we also analyze where there were obstructions. So some people already had decorative fence posts or planters or something in and around the right-of-way that could cause controversy, or not controversy, but additional construction costs. So with that information, we figured out the people who were, the majority of the people who were in favor of the sidewalk, and tried to place the sidewalk strategically so that the sidewalk was within areas that they would be impacted, because during the public meetings they were saying, I don't mind it impacting me, I want it. So we tried to avoid anybody who maybe had opposition to the sidewalk.
Well, I appreciate the diligence on your department's part for that. And just to clarify, are these all the carriage style at the very end, or are these the ones that sort of create a median?
Yeah, it was a 6-foot back a curb.
Okay.
I'm sorry. Yeah, so back a curb, it would be a 6-foot carriage walk, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Well, my comment is that I think that we committed to doing this based upon a tragedy that happened in that subdivision. I think that we are trying to make it a safe for children, for busing and things of that nature. I feel like I committed to it, so I am in favor of continuing with that. I'm not going to go back on my word to do that.
I was for it then, and I'm for it now.
I'm for it, but it becomes tough when you look at the budget that we have. And while I would generally like to see sidewalks every place in the community, in any community, I think, when the residents were a mixed bag on it here, it does make you think about it. And we probably would not even be talking about this if it wasn't for that unfortunate incident, because I don't remember this ever really being a big deal in the past.
Future surveys long before this accident, they said they didn't want sidewalks.
So, you know, I do feel, along with trustees on the other side, that since we apparently committed to it, we probably should stay forward. But I could very easily see pulling this or putting it back and putting that money into other things that we need that benefits the entire community versus a relatively small spot that hadn't been an issue until an unfortunate situation occurred. This is a difficult one for me.
Would the village board be able to consider potentially punting this to next fiscal year? And my reason being is this will be our first full year of realizing and understanding what we may receive with the non-home rule sales tax. We are estimating anywhere from $760,000 to $790,000 throughout one full calendar year. This would then help assist us with our vehicle and equipment fund, which we'll be covering later on throughout the presentation. But I just want to throw that out there to chew on and think about if that is something that the village board would consider. If not, we will continue forward as directed.
Thoughts on delaying it 1 year?
I'm actually in favor of that. I think that's a great suggestion.
Yeah, this is a very difficult situation. I understand both sides of the story. I mean, It's a heartbreaking situation that, public safety is first and foremost in what we do, the decisions that we make sure that people have a safe travel. But as we mentioned to this subdivision before, we don't have the funds to do this. This is not a high priority funding project, although perhaps maybe we could look at grant funding for this. And as Nick has mentioned, see exactly how the funding comes in for the non-home rule sales tax, which this is a perfect project for that. So I would agree with Trustee Dudek in postponing it and reevaluating our funding mechanism for this.
I'd like to see it this year. We've punted it once. Just because time has passed doesn't mean the tragedy has passed. We say that safety is number one. This is evident of it. Us doing this, whether it ruffles a few feathers, which we all sat through all that and hear both sides of the story, and I understand it. I feel for it. My commitment was this is what we need to do to make it a safe place. And to say that we're uncomfortable spending $400,000 for sidewalks that are specific to school bus drop-off and pickup, because that's what the story is really revolving around, but yet we're willing to spend tens and hundreds of thousands of dollars on signs and downtown banners. I would really want to rethink it. If we're going to punt something like this because we can't find the money, then we need to scroll back a few screens and see where there's some money that's not involved in public safety.
Make a good
We
point.
told the folks of the village, and as well as in this community, that we were going to do this, and we did the right thing trying to find some free money. That's fiscally responsible. It wasn't there, and I don't think that punting it in future hopes of something happening is really going to change anything other than us just kicking the can down the road. So I may be in the minority. I'm happy to be voted against otherwise, but I'm all in favor of keeping this in this year's budget.
I absolutely agree. I feel that I gave my word, and things can be difficult. In conjunction with this, I would love to see us still look to see if we can get a grant out there. There's nothing to say that we still can't look to get a grant, even if we're proceeding, if we start continuing with this. But I think the only thing that happens with kicking the can is that the cost is going to go up, and we're just going to have, I think we send a bad message. I think we have to be people, I feel like I have to be someone of my word.
So I'm hearing that we move forward with this.
As the new guy who was not sitting up here when the tough discussions were being had, and also taking into account Public Works, taking into account the opinions of people within the neighborhood and understanding the context of these updates, I would agree if there is a final gut check on grant money, I would also be comfortable keeping this within this financial year.
Good. Got your direction.
The Georgetown Drive and Three Oaks Road traffic signal modernization project is MFT funded. This project aims to improve the LED signal heads to bring those to a more modern design. The signal heads are currently outdated. Because we are touching that intersection, we are also required to improve the pedestrian crossings, which is included in this project. We're currently in the design phase for this and aiming to go out to construction this spring.
And the parts and stuff are not readily available for these right now, too, right?
That's correct. Yeah, Mead is our maintenance person. They're constantly telling Steve, "You guys got to do something about this because it's harder and harder to find parts for."
Right. This is also another project that we've delayed.
Here's our MFT summary, MFT fund, motor fuel tax fund summary. As we've mentioned earlier, we utilize this fund for our annual road program. Our estimated annual revenue is around $790,000, and we try and max that out every year, as you see in the out years. We got additional monies budgeted for this year because of the First Street project. We also have our Georgetown and Three Oaks project that was just talked about in this fund.
This is the map of sidewalk repair through town. This map shows the current conditions or sidewalks that we've had reported or we're watching. As you may remember, we address sidewalk concerns, whether we grind them in-house. We have a sidewalk cutting program during, typically during overwinter, or we do replacement, whether that's in-house or through the road program. While the numbers do drop, they don't drop very fast because it seems for every 10 squares we do, another 5 pop up. So the overall count is going down, but not very fast. The chart in the upper right shows the cost has risen like everything else and what our budget is for sidewalk replacement. Pavement patching, these are locations that we are going to look at this year for next year, sorry, for pavement patching. This is just roads that are failing where we can do a patch to, if we can do a patch where the road's good for another 5 years, that's great. Otherwise, it's target areas where we can get a couple more years out of them before we do a full repave over them. Not every one of these locations might get hit depending on how severe the patching is, but these are the ones that we are going to target. This is the road maintenance capital fund breakdown. One new thing that you'll see in the pie chart is traffic calming improvements. We are going to try to implement some traffic calming improvements in various locations where we've gotten pedestrian safety concerns throughout town. The rest of it pretty much stays the same with the sidewalk and curb replacement, pavement rejuvenation, street repairs, sidewalk cutting, asphalt patching, bike paths, and pavement markings. And then again, you have the chart that shows the cost of thermoplastic has risen over the years.
Any questions for the past few slides? Wonderful. We'll now move on to our fleet, which you can see in the very nice graphics there. We have our EV 100% electric van, our newly leased community development vehicles in the bottom left corner, and of course our plow trucks. I'll hand it back over to Steve.
This is the cost breakdown summary sheet for vehicles that we are leasing. You can notice that the overall number of units stays the same through each year. Prices do change a little bit because it does go up each year. We're not planning on making any major changes. As always, there's a few police SUVs that will be replaced. This is the breakdown for Public Works. We have a 1-ton and a pickup truck that we are looking to change into a lease. It is an older 1-ton that's already had some major engine work done on it. And the pickup truck, while it still has low miles, is getting on in years, so now would be the time to sell it for its max value. And then we would most likely replace the pickup with an SUV and the 1-ton with another 1-ton.
I think it's also important to note, as Steve just mentioned, with our we get a lot more equity back with the pickup trucks that we do the leases with. So it's definitely a great program that we continue to roll out.
We also have We also have two 10-ton plow trucks, single-axle plow trucks, out in 5 years to replace. These trucks, while they don't get a lot of hours on them, a lot of miles on them, they get a lot of hours on them. They are run pretty hard with heavy loads pushing snow and all the salt, so they tend to deteriorate quicker than normal trucks. So the idea is to try to sell them while there's still some value in them. One of the trucks, I like dropping names, so one of the trucks, our mechanic, Travis, just replaced the camshaft on it to buy us a few more years on it.
Here we have our equipment summary outlined for our needs over the next 5 years. You can see in next fiscal year we have a vibratory plate compactor and a MyoVision video traffic counter. Some larger items to note in the out years. Boom truck, also known as a bucket truck, is about $500,000, and a loader and a medium tractor in the following year, and then fiscal year 29-30 we have replacement of the chipper truck, which we all know gets used on a regular basis from spring through fall, winter when we can. We have one item here I think we've kind of touched base a little bit on earlier. We have EV charging station. We had a little bit budgeted for the downtown. We also have some budgeted for Village Hall. So we're looking for any direction of, I know we talked about the downtown, but if there's interest or thoughts, or if your feelings remain the same.
We can charge the one we own that's electric, right? We've already got.
We have a charger
capacity
for that one,
okay.
correct. That one remains at the wastewater treatment plant, so not needed here as well, but.
What was the thought of adding that one here?
I think the infrastructure was put in when the building was built. I think from people who are here before me can touch on this, but the idea was that the fleet would maybe go to more of an EV, and then we'd have the conduit and stuff to charge the vehicles instead of tearing up asphalt, and we could put it back in the where the police or administrative vehicles park in the back.
Yeah, I think it would be more focused on employee base, and also, like Kaylin mentioned, for our vehicle fleet. If we were to move more towards EV type fleet, whether it's community development vehicles, administration, public works, police, things of that nature, it's just definitely under consideration for employee use.
At this time, is any of the current fleet that is on premise here, are there any EVs here, or is everyone who's EV currently being charged over at Public Works?
Currently, we have one EV, which is at Public Works.
Okay. And I haven't seen it in the previous slides in the plan, but it doesn't look like there's any specific plans to lease or purchase any EV vehicles in the foreseeable future.
I will say that our meetings, I used to meet with Chief Finland and myself and the enterprise group, and we would look into those options, but they weren't always readily available. They'd be called out immediately, they'd be picked up, and with our processes where we have to get board approval, we can't just say, yes, snag that one, we want that. So lots of times, by the time our ordering is up, they've either closed it, the window for ordering is minimal, or they hit the lot and they're picked up and we don't have the opportunity. So they're not as readily available as you would get for maybe a hybrid or just a smaller engine, fuel efficient vehicle that we'd be looking at.
Is it kind of like the cart before the horse? I mean, we wouldn't look at them if we don't have a charging station here. It'd be silly to do that. So I guess to me the question is, would we entertain that if we had that here to keep that in as a placeholder for 29-30? That's a question I would have to ask you guys, administration.
Yeah, for my recommendation personally, I think it would do us justice to keep it in the fiscal year 29-30. I think as the years have gone on, it'd definitely be worth entertaining for the village to look into a leasing program with, at least to start off with our community development vehicles administration, to utilize those potential cost savings. So I think it would be my recommendation to keep it in there for that fiscal year, and then review it on an annual basis.
Continue looking for grants too.
To me, I say keep it in. Keep it in for back there. It's 29-30 is a placeholder.
And then here's our summary, non-water and sanitation facilities. So outside of our utilities department, we have our municipal center, police department, public works, metro facilities, and then the regional training centers. Over the next 5 years, we plan to spend approximately $25,000, which we've done on an annual basis. For the municipal center, larger items to note in public works, we have $650,000 scheduled for the next fiscal year. It's a higher number because we plan to replace the cold storage facility's roof, and then $140,000 in the year after that for overhead doors, paving, and HVAC improvements. Additionally, the $325,000 budgeted annually, that's our annual payment for CCOM, the regional 911 dispatch.
Thank you, Director Noonan. So, as village staff has been presenting the road program, our vehicle and equipment fund, we definitely want to take a moment here to hear from the board on some feedback. But before we get to that point, I want to go over a staff recommendation on how to achieve the vehicle and equipment program, also our road program, with the use and aid of the non-home rule sales tax. So here, as you can see, if the chart goes from the top to the bottom, we do have a challenge here. The village has a 5-year vehicle and equipment replacement plan with costs that significantly exceed the current fund balance. We have several large vehicle and equipment purchases that are scheduled over the next 5 years, creating a long-term funding gap. So you might be asking why the vehicle and equipment fund may no longer be sustainable. Back in the day, we were receiving annual impact fees from Meyer Material, which is no longer a thing. It ended several years ago. Thankfully, we had some forward thinking with staff to try and stretch and extend what we had in that existing balance going over to the leasing program. It was definitely a great program to sustain that fund for as long as we can. And as mentioned in the past few years of the CIP presentation, it was noted each time that that fund is depleting rapidly. So with that, staff is recommending that we close the Vehicle and Equipment Fund, which is a standalone capital improvement plan fund. It's located in our capital improvement fund, and move the vehicle and equipment purchases to our general fund. Doing this will ensure reliable funding for our vehicles and equipment while also maintaining the village's high level of service. Doing so, we would use approximately half of the estimated non-home rule sales tax, so just a portion of the $760,000. This would help fund our annual leasing program with our fleet, which comes out to approximately $390,000 each year. And that fleet includes our police vehicles, public works, administration, community development. This would help support our vehicle and equipment purchases. And then lastly, looking ahead, vehicle and equipment fund would need to be reviewed on an annual basis. The goal is to balance the funding of these vehicles, our equipment, and road improvements, while also ensuring the tools needed to maintain the village infrastructure and, again, the high level of service. So right there, I verbally mentioned what staff is recommending on how to achieve this and achieve this high level of service that we provide for the residents. On this next slide, I try to visualize it for the village board. You can see in the top left chart there, we have our fiscal year 26-27 vehicle and equipment fund expenses. So we're planning to expend $390,000, and that's just to maintain our ongoing leases. Below that, we have the non-home rule, a portion of the non-home rule sales tax that we're estimating to receive. That'll give us that $390,000 to cancel that out. And on the bottom there, we have a recommended 2026 road program at $670,000, with the additional leftover non-home rule sales tax at $369,000, which will give us in total a little over $1 million for our road program. The chart on the right helps visualize. On the left, you'll see the road program, and on the right, there'll be the vehicle and equipment fund. Our goal is on a year-by-year basis to try and make that road program a lot larger than that vehicle and equipment fund, and we hope to achieve that. So I want to bring it up to the village board and see if there's any questions that you might have for staff about our recommendation here.
Who's got some questions?
How does it, if we maintain the fund as is, how is it going to be funded? Basically, it's just, the money's going to come out of the general fund anyway into the vehicle fund, correct?
Yeah,
Correct.
go ahead.
Sorry.
Kelly.
And if you remember last year too, when we finalized CIP and the operating budget, we did have to do a transfer for fiscal year 26 into the vehicle and equipment fund to fund that, to essentially bring the vehicle and equipment fund down to zero in fiscal year 26. So at the end of the fiscal year, this year, we're expecting that it'll be zero fund balance.
So we're just going to end the jockeying of money.
Yes.
And
Yes.
the only question I would have, because that's perfectly fine, we're making it cleaner in my mind. I would want to draw a question to when you use the word dedicate. How tied in is that? Is it something that we're going to make statutory, where we're going to say 49% of tax will go to this, or is that just an estimate?
No, I think it's something that's going to be evaluated from year to year. We're staying within the guidelines of what we first enacted this tax, that it would go for things that wasn't going to go towards overhead or personnel or anything. It's going to help us with our capital improvements. It's going to with our roads, with vehicles. And this is something that we can assess every single year.
The only question I have, which I agree this is a wise way to go about it, as much as I understand getting rid of the fund, it is an easy way to show accountability for where the money's going. That's my only thing with we said what we're going to do with this. I didn't talk to him about this.
I know. I had this with staff.
That's my only concern is if I'm someone in the public, if I'm a resident, it's easier for me to say, okay, yes, you did take the money from the non-home rule sales tax, and here's where you put it in, versus if you put it all into the general fund.
We're moving from a fund to an account.
Right.
So within our general fund, there are various accounts.
Right.
Which I didn't. That was one of the first things I said. I don't want. My original thing was like, what if we did a percentage of this every year would go towards, I don't know what that percentage is, but go towards the vehicle replacement fund. But by eliminating this fund, it cleans up the accounting.
Sure.
But we also, it's itemized on our.
It's a sub-account
It's
within
a sub-
AGL,
yeah,
within the
right.
general ledger.
Absolutely, and we
Sure.
can create a new account that's specific just for non-home rule sales tax for the purchases or for the leasing of vehicles.
I like
I
the
just would like to make
accountability.
it somewhere that you can make it easily accessible for anyone that wants to know that we can show where that is. That's all. Otherwise, I'm fine with your recommendation.
Mr. Dudek, Stefani?
I'm okay with it. I'm just, the same question, does it open the door for potentially more spending to take place in what used to be a more controlled area because you're under the general fund? I would not want, to lose accountability of what we're spending money on.
Yeah, absolutely. I almost think that it makes the analysis more strict of what you're spending those dollars on to make sure that you're truly spending what you actually need, since it is coming out of the general fund dollars, but something that we'll keep a pulse on.
If you feel confident in that, then I will defer
I
to
do.
your, okay, thank you.
I'm good. You guys answered all my questions.
Yeah, I had the same questions before, but got to live by what Kelly says over there. No, I have full trust in staff's recommendations on this.
Yeah, I think it's also, and thank you to the village board. I think it's also important to note that all these vehicles that we are leasing in public works and police and in the equipment, the future equipment purchases, they do take care of our infrastructure. And that was the whole goal and point of getting the non-home rule sales tax, to go to our infrastructure. So it still achieves that goal.
And Nick was hoping I wouldn't talk tonight, but I'll add one little thing. They've been doing a great job so far. You might have noticed in the fleet planning grid and tables there that there are these bigger expenditures, these capital expenditures for plow trucks, boom trucks, things that are not like your normal vehicles. These are several $100,000, six-figure items. In the spirit of defining what a capital item is, that's the epitome of a capital item. This non-home rule sales tax doesn't cover those, you might notice. So that being said, because of our very solid fiscal management from this village board and our staff, we oftentimes and fortunately quite regularly have general fund balance at the end of each fiscal year. And we've oftentimes and our policy has been to transfer that for capital needs each year. So that is one of the only, Kelly can correct me, it might be the only funding source for our capital fund as well. But that being said, those overages that we do, those extra funds that we do encounter because of our fiscal management, those could be, and we would recommend saving those for these blips in our capital needs, for the $500,000 boom truck in a couple fiscal years, plow truck and so forth. So in case you're wondering how are we covering those seeing those numbers from the pie chart previously, that is our general approach. It's not that different than what we have been doing in the past. We're just kind of memorializing that in a direction here as part of our CIP.
Just taking that surplus and making sure we're going to use it the right way.
Perfect. I'll hand it over to Capital Projects Manager, Katie Ward.
Starting with the Cary Lake at Rotary Park Master Plan, which was presented to the Committee of the Whole on the 20th, so I won't get too in-depth as you already received that. But as an overview, we do have a few elements that we would like to include in the park, which would be phased over the course of many years. In the northwest corner of the park, it would be dedicated to a public-private partnership for development. We are in pursuit of an Open Space Lands Acquisition and Development Grant, or OSLAD grant, which is what caused us to create this new master plan. Various points of the future trail and vehicle access to Route 31 are noted on the left side of this plan. We would also look to improve the peninsula and add more elements around the parking lot that would be accessible. Also included, we would have the mode trails, a challenge course, sensory garden, and really looking to improve accessibility throughout the entire park.
And we will be covering additional notes that will receive board direction later on throughout the presentation.
Yes, so please keep this in mind. This slide focuses on the paving of the trails at the park. So as you can see, segment 1 is going to be completed as part of the Deep Well project. Segment 2, we have budgeted to complete that loop, the outer loop. And then segment 3, our proposed future paving, which if you were to take segment 2 and segment 3, the OSLAD grant application and the proposed future plans call for paving all of those at the same time. So right now we're budgeting to complete that loop, but completing all of the trails as an option. This gives an overview of the general maintenance that would be required over the course of 5 years. We do call for controlled burns and invasive species mitigation, which would keep the ecological quality good in that area. There are mowing services, which would increase if we were to do those mowed trails as part of the OSLAD improvements and the master plan improvements. For the OSLAD improvements, we are budgeting for $100,000 for design. That cost is dependent on the cost of construction, what those improvements would be, so that number is subject to change.
Next, we'll be handing over to Superintendent of Utilities, Matt Anderson.
All right. At Rotary Park, work has begun on a new deep well, with the contractor expected to begin in earnest in the next couple of weeks. The village has obtained $12 million in forgivable loans, securing reliable, clean drinking water for the long term. The majority of Bright Oaks water main was replaced in 2025. The area highlighted in yellow is phase 2. Remains to be done in next fiscal year. Coming up in the next couple of fiscal years is engineering and replacement construction of the filter vessel at well 4. See there?
And we have no choice about taking it through the roof, right?
Only way out and in. Some of our ongoing capital replacement programs include our residential water meter replacement, with all but about 300 legacy meters expected to be replaced by 2031. There's a lifespan about 15 to 20 years on the meters, so there will always be ongoing replacements. Also included is water main replacement programs throughout the village, and finally lift station rehabilitation and replacement. Some other water Water and sanitation CIP highlights include well rehabilitation, equipment replacement, sanitary sewer replacement, and wastewater treatment plant upgrades. Some of the major expenditures in our water CIP are the well 14 construction, water main replacements, well rehabilitation. All these are accounted for in our current rate study. In fiscal year 27-28, we will conduct the next 5-year rate study to review costs, infrastructure needs, and rates, ensuring we plan responsibly for the next long term. Some highlights of our sanitation CIP include wastewater treatment plant facility and equipment replacement, such as digester, roof, boiler, sludge pumping equipment, lift station rehabilitation, sanitary sewer replacement. These are also already planned in our current rate study.
Thank you, Matt. Any questions regarding some of those?
I don't have a question. I have just a comment. In my time on the board, this part of our budget has been the best run part. It seems like sometimes we're a little bit slow maybe to raise our water rates, but generally speaking, it seems like it's, if I could take this and apply it to some of the other areas of the village, I think we'd be better off fiscally. It just seems that we have an ability to charge for what we need to charge for here that we may not have in other areas, or perhaps we need to look in those other areas to mirror this, but kudos to the folks that have been doing this for all the time I've been on the board, because I've never remember, any previous board I've been on sitting there saying, where are we going to get the money for X? It always seems to be there. So good job.
Wonderful. Thank you, Matt. Next, we'll dive into commuter parking. As in the past couple of years, as this has been presented, you can see that big dip in 2020 when the COVID pandemic began. You can see that slowly and steadily the utilization rate is rising, but it is definitely stabilizing at that level there. Here we have our commuter parking summary, where we have some planned projects with fencing, signage, landscaping near the station side, restriping, parking terminal updates and repairs, and station cameras. You can see in the bottom there that we typically have enough revenue to handle these smaller expenditures.
Replacing that shelter that came down in the storm? Out by the ticketing?
Yeah, it's our plan to try and get that back up, rehab it once the Depot Plaza's structure is rehabbed as well.
Yep, just checking.
Next, we're going to go through several stormwater-related projects. First up, we have our Margaret Terrace Detention Basement. It's a shovel-ready project. Our plan with this project is kind of to do attack it from two ends, with Public Works doing some of the initial work and heavy lifting to avoid increase in costs, but hiring a contractor to do the remaining work. And you can see in the picture it is overgrown, lots of weeds, the gravel inside. You can see the timber sitting in the middle there. We do get some complaints of this basin, so our plan would be to fix the timbers and or regrade it to where we wouldn't need the timbers, and then pull out that stone, hire a contractor to plant some native plants and make it more of a naturalized basin. Our estimate is that project's going to cost around $80,000 with the contractor and the remaining work being done in-house. Next, North School Street drainage improvements. This was identified in our drainage study that approximately 375 linear feet of existing 12-inch storm sewer needs to be replaced with a 24-inch storm sewer. it's determined that the 24-inch storm sewer, there's existing 24-inch around, and it kind of suffocates into that 12-inch. This will help, the new 24-inch will help with water movement during heavier rain events. The project will be completed in conjunction with the Maplewood School redevelopment project. This project's estimated to cost $250,000. Again, shovel-ready and is TIF eligible expense. Now we're going into several future unfunded projects. I think this is a good way to realize the amount of projects that are out there that we have we're consistently looking for funding grants specifically that might be eligible or make these projects eligible to move forward. First up, we have Cary's Veteran Park Drainage Improvement. This is a project that estimated cost $210,000. The project consists of replacing 130 linear feet of 36-inch outfall pipe and increase that to a 60-inch pipe. Project starts on railroad property, so there is the coordination that would be needed with that project. Again, this is another shovel-ready, TIF-eligible project.
May I just add one item there? Based on the discussion that I had, this won't take much time. In talking with other residents in town, I heard stories about how Veterans Park Pond would periodically be dredged, and we'd be getting bicycles and sludge and everything out of there. Again, in conversations with staff, I heard that may also be a TIF-eligible expense. It could increase capacity of the pond, the health of the pond, and also just the aesthetic beauty of the pond during like the Memorial Day parades and everything. Just something to maybe keep in mind of an option in the future. I know it's not going to increase the flow coming from over by the Maplewood property, just based on the diameter of the pipe that's feeding that. But again, the increase in capacity could be a benefit, health of the pond, and just it'll look better, because I think it's probably, less than a foot deep in the middle of that. We could walk across the whole thing.
So yeah, we can definitely include that in the future unfunded list moving forward.
Thank you.
Another unfunded project is Bristol Way. As you know, the pavement has heaved due to a bad base. So we would have to take some core samples to find out exactly what's wrong with the base, do a base stabilization, and then repave the road. Typical road programs are just a mill and pave. You just mill 2 inches off and do asphalt over it. You leave the base. This one, you would be taking it all the way down and stabilizing the base. It's estimated to run a little over 1.1 million on the high end.
Sorry. Wasn't there something to do with the way the last contractor did the road there that resulted in this? I thought I remember something that wasn't done properly originally.
I wouldn't say it was something that wasn't done properly. I think it was information that we found out after we milled the road and found out that the under-course was bad. At that point, it was too late to try to fix it all. There was back of curb drains installed and run to storm basins to try to help bleed off some of the water in the area. That did not help. For what it is, it was explained to me at the time that this was supposed to be a semi-movable road. It would heave and then settle back down. You can clearly see it heaved, but it didn't settle back down.
Yeah, for some reason, I just remember something about when this was done. There was some problem with the contractor, the way they did it.
This has been done within like the last 10 years, 5 or 6 years even, maybe.
Closer to 10.
10, yeah.
In my recollection as well, when it was resurfaced 10 years ago, that the base conditions were from the original construction. So as Steve mentioned, I think the the process by which it was constructed originally wasn't wrong for the times, but the means and methods might be not what we would categorize as ideal or standard in current processes. So we've obviously tried the first measure with the under drains. It brought some life, it brought some extra life to the situation, but it hasn't cured it. So these are the two options that we have to fully cure it, should we find the funding.
Another unfunded project would be the UTV out at Rotary Park and a building to store it in. This could be used for maintenance, events, patrols for the police department, or a way to move an injured person if they were to get injured on the far side of the trail and we weren't able to get a piece of vehicle out to them or an ambulance. We could transport them back through this.
Circling back to the OSLAD grant and the master plan that was developed as part of that grant process, the consultant had put together, that developed the master plan, a list of recommended improvements to be included in the park. They recommended that 5 of those improvements be included in the application, and they suggested the top section circled here be included with that application. At this time, it's not financially realistic to include all of those in the grant application. It is a 50-50 grant match. So we took a look to see what projects could be included that would be more within budget. If we were to select projects that have a lower cost associated with them, like the accessibility improvements at the existing shelter, the fitness stations on the trail, overlook deck, or the rental storage, it wouldn't create a very strong application. We are looking to make sure that the elements included in that application are distinct in nature and attract a diverse group of people to the park of all ages. So we are working with the consultant to see how we can reduce the scope of these projects to see if we can hit a more realistic number while keeping in mind the strength of that application. In the meantime, the master plan that we developed is very robust. It is great future planning, and we'll be looking into other grant opportunities or sponsorships that can help supplement any future projects in the park.
Continuing on, we have US 14 and Three Oaks intersection improvement. Pause and remind, we're still on future unfunded. I know we've gone through a lot of projects, but these are our future unfunded projects, and I'm going to go through several more here now. So US 14 at Three Oaks, it's a unfunded conceptual project with an estimated cost of approximately $6 million. It's focused on improving intersection safety. The intersection has been identified as a high traffic location and accounts for a significant portion of traffic related incidents within the village. The need for improvement at this location was recently recognized by McHenry County through their safety action plan, which helps validate the safety concern and supports future funding eligibility. Potential improvements would include railroad crossing upgrades as well as traffic signal modernization aimed at reducing conflicts at that intersection. While it's not currently funded, this project is considered a potential candidate for surface transportation program grant funding. Staff's bringing this forward to highlight the safety priority of the project and future grant applications and regional coordination with the county and other agencies.
And this project has also been identified as one of the top 4 intersection improvements for McHenry County Council of Governments. So we'll be talking about this when we go down Springfield as well. And 3 out of the top 4 intersections that we're going down for are in the Village of Curia.
Thank you. Next, we're going to highlight ITEP grant and our eligibility with this. Bear with me for a moment here. The Rawson Bridge Bikeway is a multi-jurisdictional trail project coordinated with the Village of Cary, Village of Port Barrington, Algonquin Township, and Nunda Township. The villages applied for this grant in the last 2 cycles and was not awarded in either round. Following the most recent denial, staff met with the state to better identify their scoring eligibility and requirements and concerns with our project that they may have. The primary obstacle that we've come up with is that the project would require one entity, taking the Village of Cary, to serve as the lead administrator. So one of those agencies would need to be the lead administrator for the grant and construction contract. As the agency, Cary would be financially responsible for the full cost of the project, currently estimated at about $3.8 million. And we'd need intergovernmental agreements or IGAs in place for the agencies to reimburse us for their respective cost-sharing portions. Without formal IGAs in place at the time of the application, the project's unlikely to score competitively. Talking with the other agencies, initially it was strong feelings that they were ready to go, and then some agencies had a little questioning hesitation on the back end. Obviously, in the current costs, financial capacity is not there for us to take on that burden without those IGAs being in place, or some sort of what's the word I'm looking for? Some sort of confirmation that the agencies are able to pay that back. In addition, we'd have to advance that full project costs and assume the risk of unforeseen construction overruns, even on a temporary basis. Without the committed partners, the project's not competitive for that ITEP funding unless we're able to take that on. So moving forward, the project would require executed IGAs with all partnered agencies prior to submitting that ITEP application, and a clear cost-sharing commitment. Commitment was what I was looking for earlier. That would limit the village's financial exposure for that project. Any questions on that? Next is the Cary-Algonquin Road North Trail Extension. It's a future project. This is proposed trail extension that would connect West Main to Industrial Drive, improving north-south pedestrian and bicycle connectivity. A small section of the trail is covered by the High Road Extension Project, a very small portion there at the intersection of Industrial and Cary-Algonquin. The trail extension aligns with other plans and ongoing investments, including the Maplewood property redevelopment and the intersection improvements at Cary-Algonquin and Industrial. Together, the projects would create a more complete, robust pedestrian system within the village. The village recently submitted formal comments to the county supporting inclusion of this trail project in the county's 5-year transportation program, and it will actually is scheduled to be discussed at the county's transportation committee meeting, which is meeting tomorrow morning. So they'll be talking about this project and potentially including it in that program.
Industrial Drive is planned to be paved in 2029. With that, we are looking into changing the road striping again. This would make drive lanes on either side with a center median. There would be no stopping, standing, or parking at any time on the drive lane, but they could stop, park, or stand in the center median. In addition to this, next slide. There is a future unfunded project to put sidewalk down Industrial. There's currently sidewalk that goes from Georgetown to the cul-de-sac, but then nothing that goes down the rest of the way. So this would be a proposal to do the sidewalk down the rest of the way, which the total cost for paving, striping, and sidewalk is estimated at $1.2 million. Like I said, the paving is already accounted for in the MFT at just under $700,000. The striping would be about $15,000, and then new signage about $2,000.
Next is the McHenry County Conservation District's FELPRO Triple R entrances. This has been discussed at future CIP planning meetings. The future unfunded project focused on improving pedestrian access to the conservation area off Crystal Lake Road. Project includes 2 proposed pedestrian entrances, one on the west axis and one on the east axis. The west axis is estimated to cost approximately $93,500 and the east axis approximately $66,000. The improvements would provide safer, more defined pedestrian entry points, reducing conflicts along Crystal Lake Road. The project would require partnership and coordination with the Conservation District as well as the Cary Park District.
Are there any questions, comments from the board from the last few slides that we covered? I know a lot of this is from years in the past presentations for CIP, but if you guys have any comments, feel free to jump in at any time.
One of the things that we've talked about, about making a pedestrian crossing to Wentworth Circle from the path that's there to connect to their sidewalk that's there. What are the possibilities of just doing a couple signs and just a crosswalk, striping it? I mean, that's something that we've talked about. Those pedestrians are kind of isolated over there, and I think it's a safety thing. I'm over that way all the time, and it's just people dodging these cars. It's a big intersection too, so yeah. And the hill and all that, yeah.
I think it's something that we could look into. I think the biggest concern from our standpoint is the curve and the line of sight, making sure that crossing over that there's not going to be an incident, a vehicle and pedestrian incident that could take place crossing there. Okay, continuing on Jandis Road, road and bikeway improvements. So this is another future unfunded capital project with an estimated cost of approximately $710,000. The project would include resurfacing Jandis along with bikeway improvements along that corridor and through up to and the railway crossing there at Jandis Cutoff. The project's considered a potential candidate for STP program, surface transportation. I know I keep saying STP. A grant funding program, given its multimodal and safety-focused aspects and components to that project. Advancing this project would require coordination with regional partners, and there's also opportunity to coordinate the timing of this project with the Selkie property development, where developers could potentially assist with funding and construction participation.
Yeah, you answered my question, because this is a great way to connect that property to the downtown. Is there any land acquisition involved in this?
From our preliminary look at it, we did not see any.
Moving on to the US Route 14 at West Main Street intersection safety improvements. In past presentation, the proposed improvements included a realignment concept of Route 14 and also overhead lane signage, pavement markings, contrasting pavement color, and high visibility crosswalk improvements. Recently, IDOT completed their resurfacing project, and they included the pavement markings and contrasting pavement color in that project, so those are already implemented. The realignment concept cost estimate is approximately $12 million and would require significant land acquisition.
This is, again, another project that's been identified in our comprehensive plan.
Another unfunded project that we have is the Cary Algonquin Road and Fox Trails Drive North inbound left turn lane, bypass lane, I apologize. Currently, there is an existing left turn lane at the southern entrance. This concept allows for a bypass lane in the northbound lane at the north entrance. McHenry County is always looking for partnerships, and they may be willing to participate in this project with Cary as the lead agency. The total cost estimate for this work is approximately $236,000. One project that was identified to be included this year in the unfunded projects category is the Well 13 Naturalized Stormwater Basin. Currently, this stormwater basin is approximately 3 acres and is mowed. With this project, we would convert it into a naturalized area, which would be considered a pilot program for the Village of Cary. It would be the first detention basin that would be naturalized. Depending on how it goes, maybe it could be implemented in other areas. The initial steps would be to work with an environmental consultant to investigate and survey the site and create custom plans and specifications based on any survey work findings that they found. And then we would move on to construction. The construction cost is approximately $10,000 per acre. And then moving on, it would be about $6,000 per year for maintenance of the area if we did all 3 acres. The detention basin naturalization offers similar maintenance costs with a natural aesthetic that provides a habitat for pollinators, it filters pollutants, and reduces emissions from mowing.
Another unfunded project would be to put a RRFB, or Rectangular Rapid Flash Beacon, at Redwood and Three Oaks. We received multiple requests from residents for some sort of improvement for this intersection based on the number of people that cross to go to the school. While previous surveys have not shown anything significant compared to the bigger one down the road, it is still in our unfunded for possibly future adding the RRFB.
In the meantime, can we add just striping?
It is striped for a crosswalk, and there
But
are
it's not like,
crosswalks.
that doesn't have the hash marks that really identifies it, like the, what am I talking about, Eric?
Like a continental style crosswalk where there's
Yes.
more lateral striping within the 2 single bars that are present.
We could. This road is different than other roads in the town where the thermoplastic isn't laid on top of the road. The road's actually etched, and then the marking is laid below, so that way it will last longer. We could do just the regular thermoplastic. It'll just wear off faster than the rest of the markings on the road.
Any discussion from the village board on the future unfunded project?
I got a question regarding the Well 13 basin. So after the initial cost, it's $6,000 a year for maintenance.
Yes.
What do you think we pay annually right now?
Currently, we're paying $5,458 per year.
So about the same?
Yes.
Okay. I like that concept. If that's something that we can do future, I think that'd be great.
Okay, next up, Park Avenue drainage improvements. This is, again, a future unfunded project with an estimated cost of just over $1.5 million based on our 2017 numbers from that flood study. The project would install new storm sewer infrastructure along Park Avenue, addressing long-standing drainage and flooding concerns. Currently, stormwater in the area drains into an existing stream that runs through the backyards of nearby homes. By redirecting the flow into a properly designed storm sewer, the project would reduce risking of flooding, erosion, and potential property damage during heavy rain events. Again, project is shovel-ready, also a TIF-eligible expense. Next, we have a draft for future unfunded projects. On the left-hand side, a lot of the stormwater-related projects from the flood study several that we've gone over, and then on the right side, we have other projects identified by staff or through studies that are currently unfunded. Some of them TIF eligible.
Thank you, Mr. Noonan. And then as to continue on with the draft total for future unfunded, you can see several projects not programmed, but definitely opportunity for future grants and TIF-eligible projects. So we'll continue investigating that. Only a few more slides left, I promise. So with that, we'll hand it off to our Director of Finance, Ms. Kelly over there.
Hi. Everyone's favorite part is how are we going to pay for all of these things? You can see here, this is our total CIP. Everything in the presentation that you just saw across all of the funds, including our 5-year projected funding and our funding source. So total 5-year CIP projects across all of the funds, total just shy of $70 million, with 5-year projected funding of $41 million. You do want to point out, this does not include in that revenue funding sources any grant revenues that we've talked about, as we don't typically plan for that unless they're front-loaded dollars that come in, as we don't always know the timing of those or if projects get deferred. This also does not include any of the fund balance numbers that we have currently. Capital is a good example of this. I know in that first fiscal year, $2.4 million, that's a big number. So right now, a lot of that is maybe projects that have rolled forward that we've already budgeted for in this fiscal year that have not happened, that now have to be pushed forward into that next fiscal year. Our current funding source for that is only the municipal cannabis revenue, and then we've also relied heavily on general fund transfers to capital projects. Doing some preliminary analysis, I do feel comfortable that in that first fiscal year, we will be able to do a pretty sizable transfer again from general fund, just based on where we're expecting to land at the end of fiscal year 26. When we look at vehicle and equipment, obviously we already discussed that, board direction to close that fund, move that into general as well. Water and sanitation is another one I want to point out, as that's always one of our largest 5-year total costs, $38 million right there. 5-year projected funding of $29 million. That's based on the current water and sewer study rate that is in place, and that does not include the $12 million in the loan forgiveness, which would actually put us at about $41 million in funding. So we're in a good spot there. Last one I'll point out there, Land Conservancy. So that has been utilized for any of the Cary Lake at Rotary Park expenses, that gets transferred into capital projects. Total 5-year cost exceeds what our current fund balance is and what we're expecting it to be, similar to what we did with the building fund in this current fiscal year, where we transferred the remainder of the dollars and closed the building fund. Once we utilize the remaining dollars in Land Conservancy, we'll close that as well into capital. Are there any questions?
No questions. It's just a little sobering. You know, it's a little.
It absolutely is, and too, if you look even on the next page, if you want to go to the next slide, Nick, kind of where our balance is. Again, that projected 5-year funding does not include some of those dollars, the grant dollars, the $12 million in the loan forgiveness. So a little more balance than that picture would lead you to believe. But the other piece of that is not funded. So all of those projects that the rest of the team just went through that are not currently in our 5-year CIP totals almost $54 million of future projects that the village would like to see happen. As always then, that's a big number. There's additional, revenue source options to consider. The board has done a great job of being fiscally responsible, and obviously with the continuation of the grocery tax and then the implementation of the non-home rule sales tax, that has greatly helped some of the health of the general fund as well, to be able to continue to do those transfers into capital projects, but not something that we can ever guarantee.
Well done. Wow.
And as Trustee McAlpine said, it is a kind of a sobering feeling that it leaves you when you look at how many things we'd like to do and need to do. But I assure you, though, that this is not unique to Cary. Every community and every well-managed, financially managed community like Cary has the same challenges, but in the same goals as well. Like a master plan, these unfunded CIP projects, having a good backlog of future items that we can jump to if we have grants or have other opportunities. That just shows good, thoughtful, forward thinking in terms of our infrastructure. So I assure you that if we came to you with a CIP that had no unfunded projects, probably means we're not doing our job. So it's sobering, but it's also intentional.
I know every budget cycle, when we talk about these things, it's staff's obligation to throw us some opportunities to cultivate new revenue sources. Does the board at this, can you go back to that one slide, please? Any appetite for the board to research any of these additional revenue sources for non-home rule communities? No right or wrong answer here.
None for me.
I would agree. I think everyone's kind of maxed out at this time. If we can avoid it, let's avoid it.
I want to hold off for right now.
I think the only thing that I would have said was really more to what Trustee Walworth was talking about with the electric charging. I do know that we can make a revenue source off of that, so that is something that I would want to toss out there before even looking at putting any type of electric chargers here at the village. I just want to throw that out there. I don't want to see vehicle stickers come back. I know that for a fact.
Neither does finance.
Nobody wants vehicle to maintain that. It's just a nightmare. It's not worth
it would
it.
also include like an additional software to be able to maintain that, which would then be an additional cost. And
you should just take that off the list.
Yeah. Overall, great job. Appreciate you guys' time.
Fantastic job.
Trustee Dudek, anything on additional revenue?
Yeah, but not coming from these 5 places. I think, I think we need to take a serious look at Selkie property, and I every time I drive by it, I continue to wonder why does nothing happen on that property, and other spots, because some of the comments that people have made relative to the big projects that we have that will start soon do have some basis in fact in my mind, because they're not generating the kind of revenue that we need to be able to fund these sort of projects long term. They're blips. You're going to get your impact fee or this or that, but then after that, you've just got your EAV, and it's not all that huge. When we look at places like Selkie and think of all the different things that have been proposed just during the last 5 to 10 years, really only one has transpired, and there's a lot of sales tax that we should be gaining in areas like that are going elsewhere. So I really think, and we've had this discussion, I've had it with you, Mayor, I've had it with Eric as well. We have someone developing business for us, but I see a lot of vacant spots still. So I think that's something that the board needs to take a more active position on, and we have to find additional revenue before we start going back to the residents.
I agree. I don't support any of the additional revenue sources that are presented here. They have a job to do to present us with all these things. But I agree. One of the things that staff is going to be working on with our economic development coordinator, with Brian, is trying to cultivate meetings with the property owners, talking about what they see, what they're hearing, how we could help, especially the ones that are within the TIF district. Just getting a one-on-one with them. Harm, no foul comes from a conversation. Say, look, what do you see here? How can we help you make this happen? Because, correct me if I'm wrong, Director Simmons, but there are opportunities for us to bridge a gap when it comes to a purchase price, if it's in the TIF. So, I don't know if they're aware of that. I'm not looking to give away money, but I'm looking to cultivate opportunities that this board is really wanting. And I think that we have to have these conversations up front and personal, drag them in here and say, look, this is what we'd like to see here. What are you hearing? Because from what I've heard, there's a lot of absentee owners, and I don't want to give you my 3-legged stool talk, but it's a 3-legged stool. You need a willing property owner, a willing developer, and a willing village to get these things done. And if you can't get all 3 of those things done, nothing happens. So I give staff kudos for wanting to set this up. I don't know when that's going to happen, but sooner than later, from what I can reckon. But no, this is a good conversation. Eric and your team. Nick, great job.
Everybody.
First rollout of your CIP. Well done.
No, I honestly can't take any of this credit. All the credit goes to the staff, Public Works Department. put many hours into putting this presentation together. Police department, putting your effort, community development, IT, and of course the finance department, with oversight and assistance from Administrator Morimoto, which I told him that we don't want him talking tonight, that we got this handled. So I think we almost achieved that, and very happy to hear feedback from the board, and we'll continue to improve this process year over year.
Thank you. Any other comments from the board?
Just a great job, by
Yeah,
everybody.
outstanding, as you guys always do. And you know what? It's awesome seeing all you guys here. So I think we're going to do this every other week. No? Anyway, but thank you very much. You make us what we are today, so we greatly appreciate it. We couldn't be sitting here without your dedication and professionalism, so thank you. Anyway, so that said, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Any opposed? Oh, wait. All in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
It's 9 o'clock. When you talk about all these figures and stuff, it's like, wow. Any opposed? We are adjourned at 9:10.